You are about to opt in to Monerotopia, a show for the Monero community where all are welcome to join. From noob to maxi, no matter what bags you hold. Just sit back and relax to the sweet sounds of Monero's latest progress. Or if you're feeling inspired, join us on stage. Remember, the only thing that can stop Monero is a false belief that it can be stopped. And if you want to win the revolution faster, we recommend you remove your XMR from all custodial exchanges immediately. Warning, voting accidents are common around here. Don't forget to properly secure your private keys. Monerotopia starts now.
Alrighty, what's up? What's up? How's it going, Tux?
All right, it's going. See, you're having some fun over there.
Yeah, I'm still in Portugal, having a great time with the fam. It's been nonstop fam time, so it's been very nice, very relaxing. No complaints here on my end. How you doing, man?
Doing all right. I was planning on going hiking today, but it's just been downpouring, just absolute torrential downpours for the past several days. So.
Oh, really? Okay. Where do you go? You go hiking right near your house?
There's a lot of trails. Sometimes I'll drive a couple hours out. Sometimes I'll hike near my house. It just depends. But it's been raining a lot, so I can't really do that right now. I guess I could, but I don't really want to hike in the rain. So.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of outside.
It's probably sunny where you are, right? Very sunny.
Yeah, Portugal, very sunny, very hot. But the ocean's very cold. Talking about this on the last show. Obviously, it's the Atlantic, but because of the currents and whatnot, you just get deep sea cold water that comes up to the coast. So it's very chilly. It's actually kind of it tricks you because it's so warm out and the water looks so nice and warm because it's crystal clear and blue, and then you get in and it's ice cold. It's nice. I like it.
Refreshing, I guess would be a way.
Very refreshing, very refreshing. Yeah. Hot beaches, cold water. Food is fantastic. Tons of fish in Portugal. All good stuff. They eat so much, man. I mean, I've been different parts of Europe, a lot of different parts. Portuguese are definitely into eating. It's a big part of their culture, which I personally enjoy, and it's good food.
Does sound like a nice culture and lots of eating. I'm a fan of that.
Tonight we got a concert that's setting up in town over here. It looks like it's gonna be pretty chill. Yeah, it's been a good time, and I've been pretty much off the radar in terms of X and Monero, which has been very nice. Obviously, I'm seeing the big things. I had Francisco on a couple of days ago, so we were talking about the 51% attack, the potential 51% attack. So that was interesting, but I haven't been following it too closely. I'm sure it'll be a topic of discussion today. Tux, I don't know if you have any views there on Cubic, but I'm sure we'll get into it at some point. But other than that, I've been pretty much off the radar. I mean, is there anything major that I'm missing in terms of things we should be concerned about in Monero? Obviously, the Samourai Wallet, the Samourai stuff, the Tornado Cash stuff. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that I haven't been paying attention to.
I mean, Cubic, of course, is still big talk. I think it's just a lot of marketing gimmick. But then, of course, like you said, Samourai Wallet devs taking a guilty plea, essentially. Probably have a plea deal. That's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. And it's unfortunate, but at the same time, can't fully blame them. They're probably been under an insane amount of pressure and stress, and if they don't take the plea deal and then they lose, it's going to be worse for them. So it is what it is, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that unfolding. And then Cubic, honestly, I haven't looked into Cubic a lot. I did catch up with part of the episode you had with Arctic Mine, which is very cool. It's always cool to listen to him, hear him talk about that stuff. And I know he has his plans for being able to use GPUs to mine hash rate and stuff as well. But the Cubic stuff it looks like a lot of marketing and maybe even fake attention. Like it might not be fully organic, but it's hard to say. But it seems like they haven't been able to, like, a lot of it's just been posing, and they haven't actually been able to hold a decent amount of hash rate for a remotely long time at all. So so far it hasn't, to me, it hasn't looked like it's been that big of a threat, to be honest.
Yeah, and we don't know how sustainable it is, right? That's kind of basically Francisco's point. Like, all right, well, if you can make some money mining Cubic while also mining Monero, go do it, and then just dump your Cubic. Like that's kind of what his advice was as a way to deal with the attack.
Eventually,
Monero miners,
less, not that much more profitable than using a regular pool. So.
Yeah, and the point that he kept bringing up too was like how liquid is Cubic actually, right? Like it's like it appears like you're earning this currency, but then can you actually go convert it into value? How easily can you do that? And so the best way to kind of deal with them is to take advantage of what they're offering and dump it on the market. That was my takeaway from Francisco. We do have a Monero, FT tip $2.93. Goopack needs updates and is asking for funds to do so. They have a Kuno and an XMRChat tip page to use the same wallet for each. So an XMRChat tip shows up in both. All right, so yeah, you can go ahead and send Goopack some money by just going to xmrchat.com/Goopacks. Send them a tip there. I'm a big fan of Goopacks. I think that they were kind of one of the first to really make an easy, click and play miner, where you can be mining Monero the right way using P2 Pool in a couple of clicks of a button. So highly recommend Goopacks and recommend funding it if they are in need of funds, because now is certainly the time that we want resources like Goopacks to be able to thrive in Monero.
Yeah, love Goopacks. It is honestly my go-to tool if I just want to quickly start mining on one of my Linux servers. If it's one if it's not headless, then I'll just install Goopacks and start mining on a pool, or I can mine locally against my node. So
I mean, silver lining here is it is lighting a fire under people to make them aware of, like, if you want to help Monero, one way to do it is to mine. It may not be profitable in that the amount of energy you expend is the amount of Monero you receive, but over time, as the Monero network gains value, and if you're holding on to that Monero, I think it's a pretty good gamble and worth the hash power for sure. I mean, obviously that's my opinion, but
yeah, that's kind of the silver lining here, is that ultimately it's kind of been like good marketing for mining Monero in general and showing people that, hey, and getting people on board, because even though there's a lot of people saying, oh, this is a threat, a lot of people saying it isn't a threat, regardless, it's kind of gotten more people being aware of how you mine Monero, and probably gotten a lot more people to start mining Monero in the first place, ultimately further decentralizing the hash rate. And the thing is, if Cubic can maintain a certain amount of hash rate, but it's not anywhere dangerously high, then they've effectively just helped further decentralize the network, right? Exactly. If they're only going to have like 10% of the hash rate, or even less than that, it seems like every time I look at the hash rate, the pool hash rate list before they shut off their API, it seemed very inconsistent, and it seemed to constantly be going in and out. But if they could maintain like 800 mega hash or whatever their average, they were doing 1 gigahash, then they've effectively further decentralized the network. They're not a threat. They're not big enough to where they can do a 51% attack. Maybe they have some plans to try and get there, but at that given moment, they've just further decentralized the network from the other large pools as well. So it's not a total loss here. I think Cubic, ironically, because of their failure, is actually going to make Monero more decentralized.
Yeah, and that being said, I don't think we should have our heads in the sand, right? Pretending it's like something we can just ignore. It's definitely important to be cognizant of what's going on here and realize that there is a chance that you know, they could have potentially pulled a 51% attack if they're able to gain the hashing power. But overall, I mean, if Monero were to fail in this way, it just kind of means proof of work blockchains as a whole just doesn't work, or at least ones that are CPU mined. And I'm certainly betting on the side that ultimately this architecture does work and just yields to more decentralization, not less. So we shall see. But I think right now things are looking pretty solid. Like the way the game theory is playing out, it's playing out seemingly in Monero's favor. And even these guys, they ultimately, I don't think would want to tank Monero unless on the side they're trying to short it, because that's part of their sell, right? Is that they're selling the Monero. The miners that are mining Cubic, that are more pro Cubic, are selling the Monero. They want it to have value, right? So I doubt they're looking. I don't really know what they're up to, but game theory would say they're probably not looking to tank Monero. We have Untraceable saying, "What's up, yo?" I bring that up because I was DMing with Untraceable. I think he's willing to jump up on stage and give us his take on all this. Tux, I don't know if we want to do that now.
Yeah, we can make him the guest. I can DM him the link, StreamYard link.
Yeah, we can bring him up now. If you want to share the link in there. Shortwave tipped 10 cents, just updated P2 pool, XMR rig, and XMR proxy since I haven't mined since winter. Yeah, there you go, right? So it's prompting people to kind of get back to mining if they weren't already, turn their miners on, dust them off. I turned mine on, but I'm on the road right now. But when I get home, I'll certainly be contributing. Not that it's a ton, but every little bit counts, especially with RandomX, it works out, right? Because it's CPU mineable, so that's kind of the game theory there. If we all run our little CPUs, we can outcompete anybody that's trying to do it in a more centralized way.
That'd be fair. Like individuals has to be assuming everybody just has one like desktop computer they're using, it's going to have to be quite a lot of individuals to make a meaningful difference. But at the same time, you can actually rent hash rate online, and you can get, I think it's a pretty good bang for your buck of renting hash rate. And I think Zeno made a video talking about that recently. So there's some people who are looking at potentially renting hash rate to try and offset Cubic if they were to get too large with their pool and too much hash rate. So
never a dull moment in Monero, right? Monero's constantly under attack in different ways, whether it's the state actors or it's individuals or other cryptos, and it's been around for a long time, and it's always come out on top. So it's, if nothing more, it is entertaining. But let's not keep our heads in the sand. So Untraceable, if you want to jump up, now would be a good time. We just shared the link. Oh, you are on stage. Okay. I guess we'll go ahead and pull them up. Okay. All right, we'll wait for him to get back up in front of the camera. Trying to think of any essential housekeeping to bring up. Nothing big right now, guys. Obviously, I would say Monerotopia.com. The next Monerotopia conference is happening in February in Mexico City, so you go check that out. But yeah, I don't have any other big housekeeping news for now.
Monero's on a player today, so you're getting a limited time discount under 300.
Yeah. So, what do you think? I mean, obviously, I'd love to get Bawdy's take on this, but do you think this price dip is just connected?
It has nothing to do with Cubic. Just
market. Just
everything's absolutly dumping right now because of poor jobs report. They added like 78,000 instead of 140,000 jobs, something like that. So it's prompting the feds to maybe cut rates, and that hasn't happened yet. So it's just dumping. Yeah, I don't think that Cubic's really affected the Monero price at all. Like if you only pay attention to the Monero price, you might be like, oh shit, this is like people are getting scared. But like you look at the rest of the market, you're like, oh, that makes a little bit of sense actually. So
Always a good time to scoop up some more Monero when there's some FUD lurking.
all right, I think we are good to. I guess we'll make this the guest segment with Untraceable.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh.
The Monerotopia guest segment is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero and Bitcoin safely on iOS and Android too. Cake Wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys.
All right, Untraceable, how's it going?
Hello. What's up, guys?
Untraceable, what's going on, man? I hope you don't mind we ran the guest segment. I know you said you didn't want to necessarily be the special guest, but you made it today, so you are our special guest.
It's all right.
How's it going?
Yeah,
man?
what's up? It's going great. It's been very busy the past 2 months. Moved, doing renovations, growing a garden, and then I also have the toddler, and a lot of stuff going on. It's fun.
Living life, enjoying life.
Yes,
that all
yes.
sounds great, man. Yeah, a lot of people get caught up in this stuff, and they kind of forget the purpose of money in the first place, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
meant to live. Not
I
just
was
to
very
talk about.
I was like very tuned into this whole like crypto space for like the greater part of like the past decade, and it's been nice to just like I've just been kind of like unplugged, just doing my own thing, and kind of just forgot about everything. And until this cubic bullshit came up, and I'm just scrolling Twitter, I'm like, all right, what the hell is this?
Well, we appreciate you coming out of Wonderland over there,
hibernation.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah. back into
hibernation.
the trenches over here to step back into. Yeah, I mean, what do you think, man? Is it all just nothing really to worry about? It's just a mining pool doing a unique thing, or do you think there's some potential concerns here?
Well, my initial reaction, which is still holds true, it's just marketing scheme to get their name out there. Because if it wasn't for them mining Monero and attaching themselves to a coin like Monero, which is one of the OG coins since 2014 and well known in the top 30, everything, no one would even know about Cubic. And no one would hear about it. Like, yeah, they're like doing some AI computing thing. Okay, like how many other coins are doing that? So it's just a marketing scheme, and unfortunately, it is working out for them pretty well. That's not to say that there isn't an actual threat there, because what they are doing is economically incentivized. So there is a possibility that they could have this 51%. I posted about it and I said, I don't think it'll ever happen. And it still doesn't seem, it seems a bit, okay, it's possible. I still just don't think it's going to be as easy as they think it's going to be. This come from beyond guy, he's so annoying. This is the thing that annoys me the most. He has such an ego. He's the supreme ruler, and he's like, oh yeah, we're just gonna take over the Monero network, no biggie. And yeah, we're gonna do what we want, and bow down to us. All the miners come over here and mine on Cubic, and just follow my plan, and you guys will make money. And I don't know, it just annoys me.
Yeah. And he's got his ardent followers. I mean, the stories of him being like super OG, like even part of like the crypto note crowd, like part of like the initial.
I don't know about that. I hadn't
Yes.
read anything
I
about
haven't
that.
verified that from anyone. Yeah.
So
I've seen people mention that, but I have not.
So about their inconsistent hash rate, it's because they do that purposely. So when they were on mining pool stats, you notice they come and go. Their hash rate goes to like 1.5 gigahash and then back down to 0, and then to 2 gigahash and then down to 0. is because they're doing like 50% Monero mining 50% of the time, and then the other 50% of the time they're doing like some AI training with their compute resources. So that's the reason why.
So it's basically just the idle time of their servers.
Yeah, I guess. Or, well, anyway, today they are doing a 24-hour Monero only marathon. So, you know, they removed they stopped reporting their hash rate to mining pool stats, but it's very easy to figure out. You can just look up this jet ski pool, which is a cubic mining pool, and they have all the stats there. So right now they have 1.81 gigahash per second. And to be able to 51% attack Monero, they would have to overpower all other miners. So if the Monero network hash rate, let's see right now, it's 4.61 gigahash, they would need 4.62 gigahash. So they would need to more than double their current hash rate. And their plan is just that miners are gonna stop mining Monero and just come mine Cubic because they earn more. Which I don't know.
Wait, what are you saying? They would need the whole? They would need 100%, not 51%.
Well, it's because to 51% attack, you need to count their own hash rate. So it's the network hash rate plus their hash rate divided by all the other miners. So they essentially need to have as much hash power as the entire network to be able to 51% attack it. You see what I'm saying? So they have 4.62 gigahash, and the rest of the network has 4.61 gigahash. So they actually have.
Right. Got it. Because they'll be they'll be increasing the total hash power as they try to approach 50%.
Yeah.
So they're currently what percentage of the network?
I think it fluctuates between 20 to 30%, 20, 25. The highest hash rate recorded, I think, was like 2.6 gigahash from Cubic. Right now it's at 1.8, so it's actually decreased. And I don't know. It's not going to be as easy as they think to be able to surpass to double their current hash rate. The come from beyond guys like, oh yeah, we'll do it in the next week or two, or maybe in a month, and I just don't buy it. But one thing I am doing, and I will. Other people I think are also going to be doing. Xenu, he had the video about how to rent hash rate. I'm actually renting hash rate right now to P2 Pool, not just any centralized pool. So P2 Pool is the best pool to rent hash rate to, and I have about 1.2 mega hash rented there right now for like the weekend. And I don't know if it does seem like a possibility that they could try to 51% attack if their hash rate does grow, maybe over the next 6 months to a year. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be as quick as they think. Then the community can come and also rent hash rate and bring their computers online. And overall, Monero is too important to it's not going to fail. Shitcoins come and go. If you remember Zephyr, the stable coin, Monero fork with the stable coin, they also had they were mined with random X. Now they weren't trying to fix 51% attack. They weren't merged mined or anything, but they had a larger or almost as large hash rate as Monero did. That was like 2 years ago. And everyone's like, oh yeah, Zephyr is the new Monero. There's no need for Monero now because we have Zephyr, which is like Monero, but it also has a stable coin. It's going to surpass it in hash rate, all this and that. And Zephyr is like dead now. It had like some inflation bugs and other problems, and the hash rate is down the gutter. So there's always going to be a solution because Monero is too important. If it comes down to this economics of Monero and mining isn't sufficient to thwart some kind of attack such as Cubic is trying, then the community and the developers will come up with some solution. I don't know if that will entail changing the consensus to something like proof of stake, partially proof of stake, proof of work. There are smarter people than me thinking about this, and they're talking about it in MRL as well. So overall, it's interesting because if it wasn't Cubic doing it now, someone else would do it in the future. It's just another attack, like from Chainalysis, doing the poison outputs, and which we are now solving with full chain membership proofs. And what doesn't kill Monero makes it stronger. So if it wasn't Cubic doing it now, it's possible. So someone else could have tried it in the future, and we will just have to solve it some point down the line. So it's good that we're thinking about this now and realizing that this is a potential issue so that we can figure out as a community how to address it and make Monero stronger so that we can have the best digital cash for the world.
Exactly. Yeah, it forces the Monero to respond at some point. If this attack is legitimate and exists, it's gonna have to deal with it at one point or another. So it's like better it happens now. Sooner the better, so that Monero can figure out how to thwart things like this. Like you said, maybe being a hybrid proof of stake or something. I was throwing those ideas at Francisco. He came on the show a couple days ago on a Monero Talk. He was saying no. He obviously, him being very much a proof of work guy, saying no, that would never make sense. That wouldn't even help for a couple of reasons. But we have like Andre from Zano, who's claiming that one day Monero will actually be proof of stake. Maybe this is what he was thinking in terms of reasoning as to why you.
Well, a lot of people hate proof of work, proof of stake, and I can see why. I'm undecided on it. I don't think it's the first solution that we should go to. We should explore all other solutions, maybe like CPU/GPU mining like Tari does. I don't know what the solution is, but collectively we'll think of something. And it took forever. It took a long time. We're going through Seraphis and now full chain membership proofs to come up with the best solution. So these things take time.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what happens if they do get close or start to approach, like what the immediate effects would be and responses, reactions. I guess obviously people would start turning miners on to fight it, renting hash power. But then, I don't know if there would be some kind of talk of, like you're saying, like essentially changing the proof of work, right? Just kind of like what we did to the ASICs when that happened in the past. When Monero was trying to be ASIC resistant, you had ASICs that were then created for Monero, and we would just fork away and create essentially a new proof of work. Obviously, RandomX was invented to prevent the need to continue to do that, but maybe effectively we would have to see something like that if you really were forced to try to fool these Cubic miners, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's one of the weak points of CPU mining, which no one thought about until this started happening. So it's in a way that it's good, like I said, that it's happening, because it would have happened at some point down the road if it wasn't happening now. because ASIC mined coins aren't susceptible to this, but ASIC mined protocols have a bunch of other problems. So personally, I think the trade-off is worth fighting for to keep it CPU mineable. But all of this.
I mean, Francisco is saying though that this would apply to ASICs as well. This same attack concept of what they're doing with the mining pool, where they're essentially merge mining. But I didn't totally follow his reasoning. I tend to agree with you that ASICs make this harder to pull off.
Yeah, because if Cubic were doing such an attack on an ASIC mined coins, then the Cubic miners would also need to have ASICs. So, I mean, I guess it's theoretically possible if they're going to try to convince Bitcoin miners to stop mining Bitcoin and start mining Cubic, because if they somehow can also offer higher rewards. But
exactly.
Yeah, all this is much more difficult if Monero would be higher valuation, because what it comes down to, it's an economic attack, because Cubic can offer to pay miners more because the Monero block reward is so low, half a 0.6 Monero every 2 minutes, and Monero is only $300 at the moment. So daily, I don't know, I think that's like $130,000 a day. So if you can pay miners more, miners who are only profit driven and they don't care about morals or ethics, and they don't care about the coin they're mining at all, they just care about money, then yeah, there's a argument to be made that that could work, that they'll mine Cubic just to make more money. And yeah.
Exactly. Tux, I don't know, you got anything you want to bring up? Any questions?
Not really. I'm just curious how long they can keep this up for. Because the only thing they have is the fact that people can make the Cubic while they're mining Monero, and they get rewarded in Cubic, and that's basically the incentive, right?
Yeah, and it's also dependent on Cubic's price performance, because their inflation is really high, so miners get paid a lot of Cubic. But how is the Cubic price gonna stay afloat? Like, what do you use Cubic for? It's just FOMO, a lot of hype. Because
Francisco's saying there's kind of a bottleneck too with even dumping your Cubic, right? So these miners are getting it, prices going up, but they're kind of stuck with Cubic.
Yeah. So we'll see, but all in all, I think it's interesting, and I'm not extremely concerned that there's actually going to be any harm to the network in the long run.
All right. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for now. I mean, we'll all keep an eye on it. So are we seeing any rise in hash then, with them saying this is their power hour here for the next 24 hours?
Their hash rate is actually a bit lower than it's been in the past week, so it's actually gone down. So they're about 1.8, 1.9 gigahash per second, whereas the past few days they were breaking over 2 gigahash. So it's actually gone down a bit. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, nothing to FUD, but something to keep an eye on.
All right, so we could leave it at that, and we'll keep an eye on it. Thank you, Untraceable, for coming out of hibernation for this.
No problem.
Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, well, obviously, you're welcome and encouraged to jump up anytime on the show. We love having you, so thank you. And
All right, guys.
we'll move it along. We'll go ahead and do price report, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Untraceable. Take care.
Adios.
All right, moving on to the price report. Now we're all ready for that one.
The Monerotopia Price Report segment is sponsored by XLix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to XLix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. XLix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
Bawdy, GM.
Sorry, was muted. Hey, how's it going?
It's going. Absolute bloodbath these past couple days, huh?
Well, we lost like 3% on Bitcoin, like maybe 10% on Monero. Like, nah, I don't know. People are always, they want their gains and they want them now, and they want them early and often, and
relative bloodbath compared to the recent gains. Now, some of them have been lost, but not all of them.
Not all is lost.
Bitcoin is down, not quite 10%, but like what, 7-8% from its recent all-time high.
Oh, yeah, but it's only down like 3% from last Saturday. So
yeah, I guess it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, every time we make a new all-time high, for like
I'd have some pullback.
Yeah, like we make an all-time high and then things just chop sideways downish for like months, and then it'll make a new all-time high. Although we've been getting short-term diminishing returns as well. So we've got long-term diminishing returns, obviously, but there's, that those spikes have been getting smaller and smaller over time. Doug, do we have you, man? I saw you messing with your...
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening. Okay. I'm listening. Yep, all good on my end.
Cool.
Bawdy, I don't know, do you want to add anything to the cubic thing? I think you spoke about it last time. I don't know if you have any new insights, thoughts with what we're seeing with this potential 51% attack, or this attempted 51% attack.
Yeah, I guess I don't have too much to add there that Untraceable didn't already cover. I wouldn't even be surprised if at some point they didn't try to make some claim that they had 51% when they really didn't. Like from what we've seen from these guys, I've seen a lot of decontextualized information about where they're really at and what they're really doing. So, and the IOTA guys aren't exactly known for being the most competent and honest people in the world either. So, I don't know how much we should trust exactly what they say. I'll pretty much only believe things when I hear it. When I either see it for myself, do the analysis for myself, or like watch someone like Rucknium or Arctic Mine, right, put out, hey, here's where the state of things is. I guess I would agree. Yeah, it does look like they, in the last 100 blocks, it looks like they got about 30 of them. So yeah, they might be at like topping out at around 30%. One thing maybe to think about too is that they only need hash rate. They only need 51% of the hash rate for like, 10 blocks, right? Or maybe it would be 11 if they wanted to do some kind of like long chain reorg. It's that 11 block limit where you start to hit problems. So, or where you potentially could hit problems if someone trying to 51%. Obviously, your own personal transactions, unless they just wanted to mine empty blocks, they would pretty much still have to include all the transactions. The danger would be if they tried to deposit Monero to some exchange, a large amount of it, sell it, and then still have the Monero after a long chain reorg. So like there might be a slight extra danger there, is that they don't need to have 51% for days on end. They only need it for like 20 to 30 minutes to try and execute an attack. Then again, are most exchanges in the habit of letting you drop like $1 million of Monero onto their exchange, and then only giving you a 10 block lock and be like, all right, here's your money, have fun, right? Like, no, I have to imagine that any exchange that isn't totally retarded is going to wait a little bit longer, depending on how much funds got deposited there. So, yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see, right? If we start seeing some long chain reorgs as they, like more often 2, 3, 4 block reorgs as if they make it to that 45, 50%, I mean, Ruckbeam did really good research showing what is the probability of how long of a chain reorg could happen if someone had X amount of hash rate and we're trying to do it for X amount of time, right? Because even if you only have if your machines only give you, say, 40% of the hash rate, variability is going to imply that sometimes it's going to look like you have 50% of the hash rate, even when you don't. It's just that you're going to happen to win more blocks over some small period of time. So yeah, I mean, they could hypothetically get a 51% attack, quote unquote 51%, just through random chance, even if they were below 50% of the hash rate. So and that increases over longer time frames. They have a halving coming up supposedly with their cubic tokens. So I think in a week or so, maybe. I can't remember the date. I don't know. The person that said it, I thought it was Untraceable that it said that, but they seem to think that it was going to cause a significant reduction in the incentives for people to actually mine on cubic. So yeah, I mean, it's not that I think there's zero risk here, or that it's a totally low, extremely low risk probability. It's I think our whole thing the whole time when this started was like, guys, please stop giving them free press, free marketing by running around like idiots being like, oh, they're good, it's happening. Like it wasn't. Like they're not close. They're not even close right now, but maybe they could be, right? So anyways, I think that's about the only things I could pile on there from what Untraceable said.
Awesome. And how about how much hash power are we seeing from Tari? I want that. Actually, I wish I asked Untraceable that one because I haven't been keeping an eye on that. I mean, it'd be nice if we start to see a growth in hash rate from some of these friendlier cryptos that are trying to merge mine with Monero.
At the moment, I have to assume that Tari they're mined on P2 pool, right? So I have to assume that Tari's hash rate could be no greater than what is on P2 pool currently, which I think is only 5%. It's not that high. It got up to 10 or 15%, and or maybe actually I think it was 20% for a while, and then it fell back down. So I don't know. And then also Tari's price fell back down. So
yeah, I was about to say I don't think Tari's really contributing that much long term.
No, I don't think so. Unfortunately,
maybe it was a cool little temporary boost, but
yeah, I don't know. We'll get Paris Hilton on the special guest segment next week and ask her what she thinks.
Tell Paris to turn on her miners. We need her help.
Yeah, come on, girl. You got resources. We know you own offices and computers and. Listen, well, we'll just get someone, we don't have to, we'll just make a little under the table deal, right? You don't have to formally agree to it. Just leave a little opening, in the architecture and that infrastructure. I'm sure we could find someone to get into those systems, and we'll give you a cut on the side.
Just expose your Kubernetes.
Hilton Hotel mining Monero.
I'm going to say a number, and whether or not it's a port that's open, just blink twice if it is. Anyways, all right, enough retardation.
All right, man. Yeah, we'll let you take it over price.
Cool. Yeah, so I should be sharing my charts right now. Let me make sure that I am appropriately. Nope, a little bit too fat. All right, that should do it. Okay, so here's the Monero price. We're looking at the 2-hour chart right now. You can see we've had somewhat of a fall off. So that's down about 10% maybe since we talked last week. Have broken down below some of these key areas, right? So you've got the obvious bright clusters here. That's not good. That's really not good price action. You've also got this right there. This isn't really too much worse than the rest of the crypto system, crypto industry, whatever, all the other coins. It's about the same maybe in terms of absolute, or relative percentage price movements. But in terms of the chart breaking down like that, not such a good thing. It can happen, right? Look over here, right? We hit this and then came back. that was also hitting a spot, a cluster down there, a standard deviation cluster. So I don't know, maybe this isn't over. Maybe this right here would be the next spot. I know it looks dubious. It's very, very thin, very sparse, but believe it or not, some of those thin, sparse lines actually can mean something from time to time. And I don't know, maybe, I mean, Cubic does have a lot of Monero, and I mean, they have a reasonable amount of the hash rate. So could they be selling Monero right now to try and get the funds to buy more hash rate? That's possible, right? That could be a factor. Maybe it's not, right? I mean, we do tend to follow the crypto, the crypto prices, but sometimes when things are meandering on down like they have been for, well, really, actually, they just kind of fell off on Friday, and late on Thursday, things just kind of like dropped. They were actually pretty flat all week long until like just the past 24 hours, maybe 36 hours. So I don't know. I don't want to say that, it's Cubic selling off here. That would be silly, but it could be, right? I'm always entertaining possibilities, and you keep those little notes in your head, and maybe they sort of coalesce themselves into a broader picture. I don't know, but yeah, so let's take a look at how Monero is doing relative to Bitcoin to sort of gauge this. If my chart will expand. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so we have been continuing to fall off relative to Bitcoin. And I kind of told you guys, hey, this chart does look to me like a chart that is going to continue moving to the downside. This would be your first spot to hope for some kind of support. I do think that we are still in a bull market, the recent pullback notwithstanding. And so that being the case, we could potentially see a spike down to here for a moment. It doesn't have to happen next week. I'm just saying that it wouldn't surprise me for this chart to need to go a little bit lower before it has the potential to go higher. Obviously, charts can do whatever they want. And what I really want to see is this thing to find a bottom around here and then start moving towards the upside. Another thing with this whole Cubic thing, maybe this is just their way of becoming a mining pool, right? Maybe it's just like, maybe they will establish themselves as a mining pool now, and then we'll just have like more distributed hash power in the long term, right? It's possible that, the economic incentives will slowly die off like they tend to do with shitcoins. And then, without them ever having actually amassed 51% or done any kind of attack, and then they're still just kind of around in the background and, still contributing to some amount of hash power and slicing up of that pool. And, that's fine. Like that's fine. The only thing is, obviously, we want people that actually do like Monero and that aren't just going to sell the price down. So we don't really know what they're doing with their Monero unless they show us, and maybe they have showed us and I just don't know. We don't really know what they're doing. So anyways, yeah, back to Bitcoin or Monero versus Bitcoin. This thing has had a pretty steady fall off. It seems to me like we should get some kind of rebound reaction bounce to the top side at some point here, and this would be a spot to look for it. Maybe the relative ratio has to go down like another 4%, right? Somewhere in the neighborhood of this band structure, right here. We are entering the window to find at least some interim support on the ratio. So yeah, you could get on there and get on, I don't know, Reto Swap and or is it Reto Swap or is it Reto Swap? I don't care. You can get on that thingy and buy some Monero, trade your Bitcoin for Monero, since I know all of you are holding so much Bitcoin. Actually, I know some of you are. Some of you guys are actually like, yay, Bitcoin and Monero, and that's fine. I guess we're happy to be friends with people that can reach across the aisle, to use a political term. All right. So Monero versus Ethereum, yeah, still not doing so great. Okay, whatever. Yeah, the rest of these charts don't look super interesting. The market cap dominance of Monero is, I mean, it's at that spot, right? It's at a kind of a clear spot to hopefully find some support. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, right? I don't know. Depends on how many people you introduce to Monero over the next coming days, since we have so many evangelists in our midst. All right, let's start with all the coins. Let's look at the Z-scores on all the coins. Everything looks bad. Monero actually looks worse than everything right now, slightly. It was already at the bottom. It seems to have dropped about the same amount as everything else, in terms of its own volatility. But we are at the bottom of the pack after sort of leading the charge earlier this year back into what appears to be a more clear bullish scenario. That seems to tend to happen, right? That's still a pattern and it could be me inventing patterns that, the human brain likes to find patterns even where they don't necessarily exist. But it does seem to me that it's not all that uncommon that Monero does lead the way and it pumps first, and then the other coins pump. And I do think that is a means of the cabal saying, all right, let's acquire a little bit of extra Monero. Let's get, they don't necessarily want to pump the price, but that's an artifact of them acquiring some Monero, so that when they start the pump, then they can sort of keep Monero capped when everything else is pumping, so that Monero doesn't get the spotlight, right? They're trying to put the spotlight, for example, on XRP, right? Check this out. This pink line right here, that's XRP. Put big, massive gains on recently. BNB was a big performer in the very recent past, or the past couple weeks. And so they want you focusing on their shitcoins, right? So anyways, yeah, I mean, again, that's just me speculating, whatever. Let's take a look at Bitcoin, right? Let's see what the Bitcoins are doing. And they have fallen off, right? Just like we talked about. This fall started on Thursday afternoon. Maybe we could say, right in Thursday afternoon is when this thing started. So you would have hoped right here to catch, for this thing to catch some support. And then it just fell down. Supposedly there were some bad economic numbers. I heard Peter Schiff say that, but I didn't really see anything that was too terrible. So I wasn't really looking that hard, honestly, guys. I wasn't totally paying attention to the price this week. So confessions of Bawdy right now live on air. I didn't watch the price this week that much. So anyways, yeah, I mean, okay, so this thing is falling, whatever. This is the common pattern, right? Let's take a look at this pattern. Let's go to the daily, and let's clear the wave magic for just a second. And let's look at this pattern. We've looked at this many times before, but we're going to keep looking at this, because this is how things have gone basically since the bottom. You get a big move to the top side, right? This one actually made it back to that same area, but then you had a long sideways sort of semi bleed off period, right? That happened from middle of April, and then it didn't break through until 6 months later in October, right? So that was 2023 coming off the bottom. And then here we had big move up, right? Like, let's measure that. Let's see how far this thing went up. Approximately 200%, right? So you got a big fucking 3x. And then what happened? From March of 2024, it bled down and sideways basically until September of that same year. So again, another 6 month period where price made big movement and then just sideways chop to sideways and down. Same thing here, right? And we can measure this one as well. How far did that one go? Well, that was 100%, right? We had 200%, then it was only 100%. Where are we now, right? We made a big movement off the bottom to the tune of about 60%, right? So we're getting diminishing returns, and we could also measure this peak to peak. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just doing this live right here. So there's 50% peak to peak. And then the most recent one was only 15% peak to peak. Maybe this thing is going to go up a little bit more. Wouldn't surprise me. Doesn't have to happen right now. Right now, this has the feel of a chart. Let's go down to the 4 hour now. What I was trying to show there was diminishing returns, right? Where it looks like we're getting diminishing returns on this bull market. So that could be something, right? Keep that in mind. Keep that in the back of your mind. It could be relevant for us later. I'm not saying that it's over. It does seem like there's probably still more juice to squeeze here, but just know that these pumps aren't looking quite as fantastic as they used to be. So right now, this does have the feel of a chart that is ready to go visit, test, maybe this area, right? That was maybe this area, right? So we're looking at a zone. This is our zone right here that you're looking at price to maybe try and test. So again, Bitcoin is also starting to enter this zone where it says, hey, you're at this zone of potential support here. And this is without the wave magic. We're just looking at horizontal areas. In fact, let's just drop a horizontal line right there. Right. So you're looking in between these two lines is where you might find some support for Bitcoin. So 111, right? 111 C's down all the way to maybe $108,000 per Bitcoins, and somewhere in this area. So is that where it'll stop? Is that the end? I don't know. Right. Fuck. I don't know, guys. I'm just fucking, I don't have any strong opinions here, but I do think that it's likely for things to find at least temporary support in this area. It could be, probably let's call it within the next week, right? You're looking at an opportunity to probably get long here somewhere in this zone. Maybe we could turn back on the wave magic, and maybe we could find some places here that the wave magic would also line up with. I don't know. Yeah, these blue lines look good enough to me, right? This guy right here, hitting these lines somewhere in this zone. That's where I would probably be trying to get long if I was going to try and trade this thing. It's not the super strongest signal that you've ever seen before, but it's, especially right here, that is a reasonably good place. Or even right here, those are reasonably good places to start getting long. You could also just get long at the horizontal support, right? That's an obvious support level. Bitcoin tends to do weird things and break through, and I mean all markets tend to do that. So you might not stop perfectly at that horizontal support, so you might get in there with a little bit of funds and low leverage, and then scale your way in, with a 1, 2, 3 buy scenario, right? That might be your strategy there to make some little bit of cash here if you're the degenerate type. I don't care if you trade Bitcoin; that's not degenerate. It's just what Bitcoin was made for. But just don't trade Monero. Just use Monero, buy Monero, invest in Monero even, but don't trade, don't be a degen, don't hurt. Don't cause the vacillation of swings. We need price stability with upwards bias, right? That's what we need. Let's see. Are we getting our alt season yet? Here's the Bitcoin dominance. The crystal ball, the 8-ball says maybe. What do you think? Right now, Bitcoin dominance did find a little support on, hey, look at that. It's one of the only solid lines nearby in the neighborhood, solid blue lines, and it has made some bounce here. Listen, if this thing starts breaking down again, we're getting a real alt season, right? This is the spot to say, hey, are we really in an alt season? And again, it could be more like a time frame, where alts are slowly, doing better than Bitcoin, with a lot of chop in between. So we don't have to have, in previous bull markets, we had this situation where alts just massively smashed Bitcoin, socked it right in the face, and had a huge over the course of a couple months, just crushed Bitcoin. I'm going to venture to say we're not going to see that this time around. We're not going to see a massive just altcoin crushing season against Bitcoin. We're going to see, kind of a meandering on towards the downside. I don't think we're going to, at some point, you'll get some big candles in there, and you'll get some huge gains, and you'll get, again, onesie twosies, right? You'll get the XRP pumping, and then you get the other things pumping. And this is a mechanism that actually tells you a little bit about the liquidity situation of the cabal and what they're seeing on their exchanges, and the liquidity situation of the macro. When they're pumping all altcoins simultaneously massively, it means they have a huge influx of liquidity from like printed cash, or from a new wave of entrance of excitement into the crypto system. That's when you get massive alt pumps, all together. When you get 2, 3, and 4 at a time, but not the entire alt system, that's more of a sign of limited liquidity and them trying to sort of generate the excitement. That's how that works. So at the moment, we're still not looking at anything confirmed. We looked at, the possibility of an alt season, but there's no reason it has to start right now. And most of this was just driven by ETH making some miraculous comeback after being miraculously destroyed, just crushed. So I don't know. Anyways, and to say ETH is making a comeback is still even maybe overselling it, right? Let's look at the ETH chart really quick. So ETH did make a comeback effectively close to its all-time high. Its recent highs at 4,000. Its all-time high happened at, it was back over here in 2021. That would be 4,800. So ETH still has yet to make new all-time highs. So still straggling behind Bitcoin. I don't know. Everyone said there's this weird dichotomy where people will say things and are totally contradictory, and you're like, wait, so which is it? In this case, you have Bitcoin maxis being like, oh, well, ETH is just a Wall Street coin, and oh, it's just the insider big finance, whatever, supported by Wall Street, and it's a deep state coin or whatever, right? And it's like, well, if that's true, then why did Bitcoin outperform it, right? Why did Bitcoin get the ETFs first? Why does it seem like Bitcoin is the deep state Wall Street coin? Why did it so much outperform Ethereum? And I ask myself, is it because Ethereum is actually far more useful than Bitcoin for decentralized finance, for people to do things that matter other than just speculate on some hodl that you hope goes up because other people decide to hodl too? And hopefully Michael Saylor prints more money by buying more bonds off of printed money, and so that he can issue whatever securities to buy more Bitcoin. Their whole price has been pumped on effectively leveraging the fiat system for their benefit. And so they're like, oh, but then in the next breath, they're like, oh, but the rational, organic, sane market, oh, it's so organic, right? Touching their face and everything. And it's like, okay, guys, but never mind for them any of the I don't know, the double standards there going on. All right, yet I digress. So Ethereum has kind of come back, but if you can see on the ratio chart here for Ethereum to Bitcoin, it's it has come back, but it still has a long way to go to really get to where you would think it might want to be. Big huge fallout there. Okay, anyways, that's enough about that. let's see. Let's look at the transaction counts. I don't know why I have everything on here, but Litecoin's still lying at 200,000. They pumped up to 200,000 early in the last bull market 4 years ago. In 10 days, they did a 4x in their transaction counts, and then they never fell back down. So it was kind of like, nah. That was before their price pump. That was before the major price pump. So I didn't ever believe them. Monero is in green here, sitting here at about 25,000, which is, par for the course. That's where we've been. Let's look at the hash rate. Wrong one. Mining difficulty, mining hash. There we go. Oh man, we're gonna have to undo all these. It's gonna take a second. Okay, here we go. Hash rate. Let's look at 1 year. So we're basically flat. Things are flat. 5 gigas, sitting around 5 gigas. Cool. Sometimes punching up to about 6 almost. Maybe I'd be interested to see if this actually goes up. Because everyone's trying to like counter the cubic narrative. That might actually be one good thing that comes out of this is some people get mining turned on and they're like, yeah, we got to fight the cubic. And, as much as I kind of make fun of the Hitler Youth and all, it's possible that they're sensationalizing has maybe driven a few more people into hashing, to mining. So that could be a good thing. I do actually I kind of would like to be friends with those guys because, we share a lot in common. I just don't, I just want them to take it easy on telling me that I'm too brown to be cool or something like that. I don't know. I'm not that brown. Only when I want to be. Get in the sun.
Bawdy's a white GigaChad, I can confirm.
I am a white GigaChad. Thank you, bro. I'm white enough for Tux. So you heard it here first. All the Hitler Youth can let me in the. And by the way, Hitler Youth, they say that there was like a Jewish and black regiment in the SS or in the troops or something. So like, what the hell, guys? All right. Anyways, enough anti-Semitism for one day. Okay, let's go to the macro here. We've been meandering quite a lot this show. This price report. Yeah, we had actually on the reverse repos, we had a big spike down on the reverse repos, which I thought was kind of interesting because the bonds also spiked down. But usually there's an inverse relationship that happens. So when stocks go down, people pile into bonds. And then so interest rates of bonds go down as the value of the bonds goes up. So that's what we had on Friday because there were some kind of economic numbers. I don't know. I didn't really see anything that was super crazy, whatever. We got some unemployment. I told you last week we get the unemployment. This thing is flat. So there's no macro crash resumption here back on the table yet. Not until this thing spikes up, right? If we get another spike up, then we'll have to like double sum that rule. And, then maybe the sum rule will start applying again, but that's going to take at least another month for us to get any resolution there. Same thing with the inflation numbers. Maybe inflation came a little bit hotter than they expected because you can see a tiny little tick up here. Oh my God, it's a little tick up right there. Maybe that was what they said was the bad numbers. I didn't see anything in the GDP. Looks like they're claimed. They say that last quarter that was 3%. This is still weirding me out. I still don't have a good explanation for how things went to negative 2.75 and then jumped up to, by 5% in a single quarter, jumped up to 3%. So I don't know what's going on there. I have to suspect fuckery. I always suspect fuckery. It's the first thing I suspect when we're talking about governments and publicly traded corporations, which is what the stock market is basically. Velocity, nothing there. Yeah, so let's look at the inflation really quick. I was actually, Jay Powell, he comes out and he talks about, inflation, we're going to get control of it and we're still not totally confident, comfortable, even though we're at 3%. Let me show you why he says that. So if we go back to when the whole thing got started, the whole problem got started in the 70s. Here's the inflation that began actually in the late 60s. So we had, you'll notice the core inflation in orange, almost the exact same levels that they had in the opening salvos of the whole inflation problem. And then it came back down to this level. And notice over here, same level, right? Everything that you had the kickoff on the inflation and then it came back down to this level. And we have a similar pattern showing up right now where we did this and then things have come down to here to the same level. And I think what Jay Powell and these guys are getting at is that, hey, let's look at the peak of the core inflation until it started spiking again. If you look down here, that says 33 bars. So if we look at the peak of the core inflation, we are currently about 33 bars into that, right? So hypothetically, or we could do it another way. Let's look at the peak of the full CPI until it started to spike again. That was about 38 bars. And then over here, And when I say bars, that's going to be months, right? We're on the monthly chart, so 38 months. And then right now we're in month 36. So what JPOW is probably doing is looking at past patterns and then saying, wait a second, we're not out of the woods. It looks good. It also looked good back in 1972, almost 1973. It looked fine, and then shit went crazy, right? Shit went parabolic on the inflation. And so they're like, yeah, we're not out of the woods yet. We still have to maintain restrictive policy. And so they're in this like face off between time. How long can they keep the interest rates high without crashing the economy? So they're sort of like dancing, juggling, finagling, trying to do everything they can, right, to keep the shit from crashing. We had a scare, right? We had that whole scare happen. And then they got control of it again. I think they're actually doing pretty good with the narratives, and I think they're using AI as the justification for printing a lot of money, injecting it into the AI economy, and that'll trickle down eventually. It'll trickle down like piss in the wind onto us poor plebs, and hopefully some of it comes into crypto, right? Anyways, the pivot here is AI, guys. Like, it's replacing crypto. It's, again, another diminishing returns theme that I'm going to keep hammering probably for months to come. Is crypto's in the diminishing returns phase, right? It had its heyday, right? We're past year 15. We're headed into 2 decades of crypto now. We're in the decade of AI, and that's just where the all of the hype is going to go to. And even though they're already enshittifying it, the enshittification cycles have compressed even as the returns have diminished. Okay, so what I'm saying here is just like, we're not out of the woods on inflation yet, and maybe they've got control of it. Maybe they learned enough lessons from 50 years ago. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I don't really know. If only I was the insider that the Hitler Youth thought that I was. Okay, going to the dollar index. Nothing happened here. A little bit of a spike. So we talked about, right, this was a spot to look for dollar strength temporarily on an interim low. This is also a little bit of an interesting chart in the sense that if this thing starts moving towards the upside in a big way, you have to start asking yourself, hey, how much juice do we have to squeeze from the stock markets and from the liquidity? Gold had a nice big candle. Gold acted interestingly. With bad economic news, it pumped, right? So I think, what happened? I bet you if I went and actually looked at it, the inflation numbers were probably higher than they expected them to be. So gold pumped on them saying, oh shit, inflation. And then also, like you said, the bonds came down and bond rates came down, values of bonds went up, and then stocks also took a hit. But guys, listen, if you're a stock bro, if you got your 401k, bro, don't worry, bro. Everything's fine, right? This is stocks. So we had the macro crash scare, a little, came back, stabilized. And then we have had like literally just 2 months, almost, was it 2 months? Wait, let's go back here. A month and a half. Let's just call it 2 months. We have had 2 months of up, nothing going down, no problems. Everybody whistling a tune, happy about their gains. And then, Thursday, you had another all-time high followed by a 3% pullback on Friday, I guess because of bad numbers or something. Probably the inflation was higher and they said, oh no, JPowell's not going to lower rates anymore, something like that. So basically we're just at this point, this line right here, this trend line, that is what we talked about. It goes all the way back to the 1929 peak, and we're basically riding that line at this point. So that's quite the trend line. So it's not surprising to take a pause, and then maybe things will have to stabilize here. Who knows? Maybe things could even fall further, right? Things could go back down here. Stock markets do that. I don't know. We'll see. Oh shit! You know what? I gotta make a note of this. The Trump. I need to look at the freaking Trump trial and the tariffs, the Trump tariffs, of what happened with those tariffs. Maybe they got reversed. Shit. If anyone wants to look that up in the last moments here while I'm talking, I would really appreciate that. I'll keep my eye on the comments here. Actually, I haven't been keeping my eye on the comments at all. No XMR chats. Let's go down here on YouTube. Anything on YouTube? No, something in wow, I don't know what that is. It's not Portuguese. Maybe it is Portuguese. It looks a lot like Portuguese. Yeah, it's Portuguese. I don't read Portuguese. Anyways, yeah, I don't see any other comments here. All right, so yeah, I mean, okay, we've had a pullback, some bad economic news, guys. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I'm not saying that the pullback is done in general, but you're looking at buying opportunities coming up here, right? This train is not over. This train is not crashed. It's just an interim pullback. Look for buying opportunities. If you're the trading type, you should be able to get some good buys in here. I'm not saying necessarily at this exact moment to buy the market on Monday at the open. I'm just saying do your own research, right? And find spots, find assets, find things that you care about that you think could actually do good. Maybe you don't care about them, but that you think they'll do good anyways, and find some spots to buy. I don't think there's really too much more to say here about any of that. We'll just check these charts one more time. Credit spreads are not telling us right now that there's fears of defaults happening, right? Credit spreads are actually quite low, historically low. So there's nothing in credit spreads that shows us, like, none of the macro here is showing us a fear thing. And then moreover here, we've talked about gold. Maybe gold could continue going up here a little bit, and perhaps if it does make a new little all-time high and come up here for the next week or so, that could be an opening salvo to say, hey, here's the next pump about to happen on the stock market. So everything looks relatively stable. Oil has had a little pump this week, so oil is still in a very stable range, right? We're looking at oil being at 67 right now. So between 65 and 70 is totally fine. There's no problems there. You're not really worried until you start getting below 60. But for now, again, everything looks stable. I wouldn't take this pullback as something to be super concerned about. Look for buying opportunities. So, all right, guys, that's all I got all I got for you this week. Yeah, nothing else here of interest on the charts. So, Tux, Doug, please, sirs.
All right. Thank you so much, Bawdy.
Thank you, sir. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
See you next week. I'm sure the entertainment will continue in terms of price. So it's always fun in Monero Land.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. Let's go ahead and let's keep it moving. I could get back to hanging out on the beach over here. I'm sure people want to get back to their Saturdays. We already covered Cubic, which is nice. We got the price report during this minor downturn. Oh, did I lose you guys?
No, we're here.
Okay. And we'll go ahead and run the news. Tux, if you want to do that, and then we'll have viewers on stage.
Yes, just bringing up the news links. All right. Thank you as always, Bawdy. Let's go ahead and jump into the news.
The Monerotopia Weekly News segment is sponsored by WizardSwap.io, a non-custodial cryptocurrency exchange.
Alrighty. Pulling up the news. Bear with me here, guys. All right. Uh-oh. There we go. StreamYard being a little bit glitchy. All right, so first news we have is a post on X from Holden Coletta. Probably pronounced that incorrectly. And it reads, RFK Jr., semicolon, if you get poisoned by Coca-Cola, you can stop drinking Coca-Cola, but if you get poisoned by a vaccine, your kids still have to take that vaccine to get to the school. If your doctor tells you there's some kind of genetic vulnerability that's affected the older siblings and your third child should not take this vaccine, he's going to be punished for that. In New York and California, there's not only no religious exemptions, there's no philosophical exemptions. If you have reservations about it, you can't stop using it. You've got to take it anyway. And then, of course, the mainstream media is bought and brain dead when it comes to these issues. They will not criticize it. They will not report vaccine injury. You have none of the market forces apply that make other products safe. There's zero incentives for these companies to make them safe. They don't get punished for it in the market. They don't get punished for it in the court. What we're going to try to do is make sure that the parents who do get injured get compensation, that they get it very quickly, and they get it without the kind of adversarial impediments that have now been erected over the past 4 years. So it looks like this was a conversation between RFK Jr. and Charlie Kirk on his show, and talking about the kind of large immunity that the pharmaceutical companies have in the United States, where they have immunity that goes quite far and beyond a lot of other industries and a lot of other types of companies, especially during the recent 2020 time years. I don't know if you can still talk about that on YouTube or not. Especially during those times where there were some rushed interventions that came out that weren't very effective and probably hurt a lot of people. So I guess that is still being talked about. Moving on. The next post is from Bruce Fenton, who says, I want a, quote, stable coin that is not tied to fiat, is not regulated in any way, cannot be frozen or stopped by tyrants, does not require AML, KYC to use. Why is this too much to ask for? Are we so beaten down that even asking for basic freedom seems extreme now? What a weird, sad world that we, the supposed cypherpunks, as an industry celebrate the government making sure the above can't be done while pushing Bitcoin into the rails of the system. It's all illegitimate, all immoral, all unethical. Money should be whatever the people want and with absolutely no state interference. Doesn't that sound a little bit familiar? I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard of something like that before. It's quite a profound
Bruce Fenton
idea.
likes Monero. He's definitely a Monero guy. Obviously, he's a Bitcoiner. He's an OG Bitcoiner. He was the one that started the Satoshi Roundtable. A very based individual and very much pro Monero guy, as you can tell. He's looking for the real deal. He was
talked
into
about
Bitcoin
it before.
for a second. I interviewed him a couple of years back at Pork Fest.
Oh, okay. Just
So
some
he's
lore.
very familiar with Monero. He's into Monero. I mean, he's into crypto for purposes of weakening the state with decentralized tech. And he's seeing the writing on the wall with the integration of stable coins into the fiat system. And the integration of Bitcoin itself into the fiat system.
Yeah, he does sound like someone who already uses Monero, if I'm being honest. So not surprising to me. Monero is obviously not technically a stable coin, but it's kind of a meme of being a stable coin because of how long its price was at a certain position. I think that's changed a bit over the past year for the upside, but it kind of fulfills a lot of that without it literally being pegged to fiat. So moving on. So this is a post from Zach Shapiro, and it reads, SW being Samourai Wallet, devs pled to the unlicensed money transmission conspiracy in exchange for dropping the money laundering conspiracy. So this is part of their deal they're getting here. Federal sentencing guidelines for the two charges together would have been 160 to 210 months, but the maximum for the money transmission charge is 60 or 5 years. Defendants agreed not to appeal their sentence if it's 5 years or less. Sentencing set for November 6th. Keone, who was required by the judge to state his criminal conduct in his own words, gave a careful allocation that accurately stated that it was the Samourai Wallet users and not the software that transmitted funds. And here's part of the transcript of the devs responding to Judge Cote, asking for them to describe what they did in their own words during the plea agreement hearing. So this says, the defendant, thank you. Between 2015 and 2024, William Hill and I agreed to operate a business called Samourai Wallet. Samourai Wallet allowed users to store their Bitcoin in an electronic wallet and to transfer their Bitcoin from one address on the blockchain to another in a way that, for a fee, obscured its transaction history. Users downloaded and used Samourai Wallet by accessing the internet. I came to know and understand that some of the Bitcoin that users were storing and transferring was derived from criminal activities, but I agreed with William Hill to continue offering and operating Samourai Wallet, knowing that some users would continue transmitting funds derived from criminal activity. To support business operations, I helped to update Samourai Wallet and market it to the public. And this continues where the court says, tell me in your own words what you did that makes you believe you are guilty of the crime charge in count 2. The defendant said between 2015 and 2024, Keone Rodriguez and I agreed to operate his business. So this is basically just Keone basically saying the same thing. And then the last image is that continuation. And the court says, did you understand that those who were involved in criminal activity and were transferring Bitcoin derived from that criminal activity would be assisted in that criminal activity by using the services of Samourai Wallet. And the defendant says, yes, I understood that, Your Honor. And the court says, give me an example of criminal activity that you understood you were assisting through the operation of Samourai Wallet. And that is all the images the person shared from the defendants and the court. So yeah, basically, it looks like Samourai is basically taking this deal and pleading guilty to the money transmission conspiracy, which is a lot less severe than the money laundering conspiracy. So they're trying to basically make their sentence maximum of, or well, at least less than the maximum of what the money laundering conspiracy would be. I guess they're looking to try and get 5 years, because I won't appeal if it's 5 years or below that, instead of the potential like 20 years is what it would be. So yeah, unfortunate. Obviously not a great precedent to be set, but at the same time, what they're up against was not very great. And of course, the prosecutors were pulling out a lot of their tweets for things that they said that don't reflect great on them legally, saying that they welcome like Russian oligarchs to Samourai Wallet, even though they are just providing like freedom tech and privacy tech for crypto. Going out of your way to basically say fuck you and screw the sanctions is not a great idea when you're providing such services. So that doesn't look good on them. So unfortunate precedent to be set, but it is what it is, and I can't fully blame them for wanting to take a lesser sentence, because if they actually went to court without taking this deal, probably would have turned out worse for them. So next up, we got a continuation of the Samourai saga. This reads from a post from Frank Corva. It says, the Samourai developers, Keon Rodriguez and William Longerin Hill, have both pled guilty to count 2 of their indictment, the conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitter business charge. More details in the video below. So I'll play this quick video here. It's 8 minutes long. So he's probably just talking about what we just covered a little bit, what I just read in some of the previous posts. So if you do want to see this video, you can go to Frank Corva, at Frank Corva on X, and he has this 8-minute video where he's talking about it a bit more in depth. Moving on, we've got a post from L0la L33tz, and it reads, a lot of people seem to have hope that Trump will pardon the Samourai Wallet developers. While waiting for the storm verdict, I took some time to read through the White House Digital Asset Report to see what this administration thinks of financial privacy. And my guys, if you still believe that the Trump White House is in any capacity friendly to these undertakings, you are in for a very rude awakening. Effectively, the White House urges FinCEN to deem all privacy measures and digital assets a primary money laundering concern under the Patriot Act, of course. And this includes single-use addresses, wallets, and accounts, swapping between networks and change, mixers, obviously, pooling or aggregating cryptocurrencies from multiple wallets. Many will now say, oh, but there's so much good language in the report as well, like the protection of self-custody. That's true, but the protection of self-custody is contingent on the lawful exchange of assets between users. That's why the White House additionally urges Congress to expand the Patriot Act and amend the BSA to cover DeFi services. To ensure compliance in DeFi, the White House suggests the implementation of digital identities that would tie all of your transaction history to your name so that DeFi services have the power to approve transactions. Even when implemented with ZK proofs, as the White House suggests, this would effectively turn a permissionless system into a permissioned one. I know we live in the age of celebrating all the Bitcoin wins, but sometimes things that glitter are just a massive pile of shit, my dudes. And this is a shared image, says FinCEN's mixer rule would deem any transaction facilitated in a manner that obfuscates the source, destination, or amount involved in one or more transactions a, quote, primary money laundering concern, end quote, regardless of the type of protocol or service used, such as, well, which are basically the things that we read above. So it looks like they're potentially trying to expand these obscure FinCEN rules to further cover what effectively is privacy tech that's been bolted on the cryptocurrencies and potentially even privacy cryptocurrencies themselves.
Yeah, I mean Monero would fall into that definition, right? Obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
That
It looks like
Fenton rule
it could. It could. Still not the most clear yet, but it does say single-use addresses, wallets, and accounts. And I
No,
don't...
that FinCEN, that if you scroll further down, keep going. Yeah, here. FinCEN's mixer rule would be any transaction facilitated in a manner that obfuscates the source, destination, or amount involved in one or more transactions, a primary money laundering concern. So we fall, I mean, Monero certainly falls into that.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Monero does do these things. And so it's not ideal. It's not ideal, obviously. Now Monero's going to shine because it's, historically there's been issues with bolting on privacy tech onto traditional blockchains. But it looks like maybe they're trying to branch that out to also cover privacy chains in general. And of course, this is kind of where everything's trending, where they want people to have an identity and they want to be able to tie everything back to you, even if it's private from other people, as long as the state can see and they can tie all of your crypto history back to you. That's kind of what they want. So you're going to have this new age where we're going to start seeing where they're talking about even when implemented with ZK proofs, there's going to be a new age where there's going to be privacy, sort of within these new technologies, but it's going to be private from everyone else, just not from the state, right? So things like verifying your identity.
Yeah, one thing to tag on here with Fenton is, these guys are they're effectively the organization that implements regulations onto other corporate entities.
They're
so
the crypto.
They're not like a criminal. Fenton can't go charge you criminally. But yeah, I mean, they can use their rules to apply pressure to exchanges and other corporate entities.
Yeah. And to me, it just seems like they're basically the ATF of cryptocurrency in that regard. Right?
That's amazing. The ATF of cryptocurrency. Yeah, that's without the guns, at least.
Yeah, without the guns. So yeah, not great. This isn't anything that's set in law, but like Bawdy was saying, Fenton kind of tries to push regulation by making these vague guidelines on how this should be followed, how laws surrounding cryptocurrency should be. So yeah, that's how it's going. That's how it's going. I mean, we kind of knew that this is where things would go, whether it was a Trump White House or a Harris White House, but this is what's going to happen. Moving on, we get a post from Peter Todd. And this reads, if they do in fact plead guilty and get a sweetheart deal, I won't be surprised. Samourai Wallet was incredibly sketchy. So insecure, it was indistinguishable from a Fed op. Quite possible Feds orchestrated all this to both run an insecure wallet and get a bad precedent. I don't know. I don't have enough historical knowledge on Samourai Wallet or involvement with them to really make a guess if they're a Fed op or not.
Well, Peter Todd would know, wouldn't he?
Peter Todd would know. It's true.
Of all people.
Mr. What was Peter Todd supposedly like? Had the CIA contact him to try and get him to work with them or something.
Yeah, also, there's no precedent being set here. You don't set precedent on plea deals. Precedent only gets set via case law that is settled and ruled on. So this is just a case where they almost went to trial and then said, okay, we don't want to go to trial. We'll take the plea deal. It's a horrible practice. It's a crime against humanity is what it is.
I guess that's true, but it still looks bad. It looks not great.
It does look bad. Yeah. Actually, I have kind of a rant. You probably saw my post. And it's, some people didn't like it. And I understand why they didn't. I understand that like all of this can be framed as human rights, freedom of speech, money is speech, your right to privacy. And it certainly is. And the government is just using whatever vectors they can to get at people who have developed privacy tools. The problem, and bros, I fucking said this 5 years ago when we saw Tornado Cash coming out, when we saw, these bolt-on privacy mixing protocols, that if you're deriving profit per usage of a software stack that you have dropped onto the world, whether that's a front end, right, or whether it's a blockchain contract that you're deriving profit from, and it requires your active maintenance, like that is the government, and putting on your legal hat, you are vastly more attackable than something like Monero, where you didn't ever, right? The Monero developers don't get paid per transaction in Monero. The miners get paid, but the developers just publish code, and then people decide to run that code, to deploy that code on their personal machine or not. Whereas something like Samourai, they're running a front-end coordinator, a website for these mixing pools, and it's an integral part of that operation, and they're deriving profit from every single transaction that goes through their mixer. Same thing with Tornado Cash. They were running the relayers and getting paid with every single time that funds were transparently well-known, conspicuous, illicit funds are moving into that protocol. Like, all of these things, these are all elements, right? And they're not a single one of these elements. I can hear the people arguing in the background, yeah, but this one thing, like, no, you have to understand that these combine together to create an enterprise, that what they then call a conspiracy, right? A coordinated action by multiple people to money launder, right? Or to well, let's just,
yeah, I mean, they very, I mean, it's very clear, right? They charge for a service to obfuscate the history of your Bitcoin transactions, to basically mix Bitcoin, to mix your Bitcoin. And whether they did that in a decentralized way or not, at the end of the day, they were offering the service and getting paid for it, right?
Yeah,
so
like, it doesn't matter if your code is
open source. It's definitely very much different than Monero, which is a permissionless tool that people can use for illegal things, legal things. It's not just a service that you're paying to use for purposes of essentially mixing your money history, right? They very much are different things.
Yeah, like that's and it's I want to push back on this so hard, because I see it everywhere in the crypto ecosystem. Everyone, and yes, I get it. We have to like push things in a certain way and say, hey, because we want to fight them over there. We want Tornado Cash to win. We want Samourai guys. We wanted them to win because it puts Monero absolutely beyond question. Right now, that line has come a little bit closer towards Monero, and there is a little bit more of a question here. It's still like, when you're an entire other league, when you're an order of magnitude better, legally less attackable than the other guys, you still have a lot of protection, which Monero does. But at the same time, people are like, they're just, and yes, I get it more than anyone. They have completely co-opted. The federal government's a criminal organization at this point, and it all started back when they forced the reunification after the Civil War. Not that slavery was good, it was horrible, but that's not what the Civil War is about. Yet I digress. It doesn't matter if you publish your code open source, if you put your infrastructure on a blockchain, or if you're only running a front-end website and you never take custody of funds, and even if you didn't form a corporation, those things don't matter. The other elements that we talked about are what matter. So Monero developers are in a far better position. They don't derive profit. And again, this is the problem of not having default fungibility at the base layer. You have coins that are bad boy coins, illicit funds that are well known, conspicuously known, being transferred into these mixing services where you're running the front end that helps them to either access that or to use the system. And so those are all of those elements are the thing that why these guys got attacked. So put your, don't.
I'm looking at the Zcash dev packs next.
Yeah, that could be, they could.
Because that's a lot closer to that line than the Monero is right now.
Yeah, that's a little different. I mean, don't forget, you have the Clarity Act that they're going to be passing that has the language in there that's supposedly very clearly protecting true public blockchains and the developers and the miners, and not labeling the miners as money transmitters.
Yeah, there's a difference between publishing code and deploying code. And I know the crypto system, we often want to blend the two, and often they are the same thing, but there is a difference there, and that's an important distinction.
And I will say too, in terms of Peter, it's kind of funny, Peter Todd calling them feds, when obviously there's been allegations against Peter Todd. But I will say, you know, like obviously, like Bawdy's saying, very supportive of Samourai, rooting for them. If nothing more, it would be more of a win for Privacy Tech and for Monero, even if you don't necessarily agree with the, like, you know, what Samourai was doing in terms of how they marketed things and their behavior. But I would say, I did find them sketch at times, right? So like, I wouldn't go so far as to say I don't know what they were at the end of the day, but I often found it very strange that they were so contentious and toxic with the Monero community, while essentially offering a service that ultimately Monero had already achieved. I mean, I guess it's as simple as the fact that it was, at the end of the day, they were making money off of providing a service for people to clean their Bitcoin history, and Monero actually competed with that. So the way they went about it was being toxic with the Monero community, not wanting Bitcoiners to start using Monero because they made money off of the fact that Bitcoin was not fungible. Their value proposition, what they had to offer as a service, banked on the fact that Bitcoin was not fungible. And so that's why I think they were a little odd in their actions, but I guess ultimately it makes sense given that that's how they made their money.
Well, they did have the doxic change where your doxic change would they were using atomic swaps to
right, and they did that out of essentially pure necessity, right? Because they needed a way of handling it. And even when they offered that, they always wanted to make it clear that Monero essentially was just a tool for obfuscating transactions and should never be used like Bitcoin as money. Was a big part of what their pitch was.
Meanwhile, they're raking in, however much money from all the fees, because
exactly, that's what I'm saying. They very much benefited from the fact that Bitcoin wasn't fungible, right? And they didn't, and Monero was honestly their arch competitor, right? Because if Bitcoiners said, all right, well, I'm just going to start using Monero, there would be no need for Samourai and the service they were offering.
Now, that being said, nobody's happy, at least no one here, is that there have been,
no, absolutely not.
Facing
absolutely
jail,
not.
lots
But,
of jail time, bad look.
Just
in general. But
just when Peter Todd was saying they were always incredible, like sketchy. I did see. I honestly, my dealings.
It's very
with them,
ironic coming from Peter Todd.
They were
like
sketchy.
Peter Todd just needs to not even say that. Just for what Bawdy was basically winking at earlier, there's been allegations that I don't remember exactly what they were, but Peter Todd was involved with the CIA, effectively.
Yeah, he appears to. In the early days, there was a very Chadley developer. I can't remember his name at the moment, but Peter Todd and a few other people very actively tried to sabotage this guy's reputation, and eventually he left. He left Bitcoin early on because of that. But Peter Todd was also, and it's hard to know for sure, but one of these guys in the email chain, John, someone or other? They were like very suspiciously connected to Intel and some CIA people. And so Peter Todd it seems like he seems more like a patsy than he didn't go to I don't think anyone believes that motherfucker went to actual boot camp. I don't think he could make it past the first day, but so he's probably not like a straight up asset in terms of he went to all the training. He probably just,
but they may have used him in some way to their advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
And if that's true, then I guess Bitcoin really is just a CIA psyop, because Peter Todd is Satoshi, right? HBO said he is Satoshi, so
Yeah, it's all of that is so fucking. I mean, it smells. If it smells like shit, there's probably shit nearby. Everything with this guy.
I love connecting the fake dots.
Yeah, I mean, it's all circumstantial, right? But what else do we have to go on? And it's like circumstantial evidence isn't proof, but it certainly gets you in the neighborhood more often than not.
So on the topic of Samourai, I think we have one last post from Mallard Beakman Says, yesterday, Samourai filed its reply in support of its motion to dismiss the indictment. Samourai emphasizes that FinCEN guidance explicitly permits CoinJoin coordinators, which do not take custody of users' funds. Samourai further argues that it did not violate Section 1960 because it did not transfer funds since it never took custody of users' Bitcoin. And once again, that was kind of the important part. That was like the main thing that everyone was holding on to for the past several years. It's like, okay, as long as you don't actually take custody, you're in the green. And it's been kind of shifted towards, okay, if you're making money off of these centralized privacy solutions, these coordinators, whatever, if you're making money off of that, then they have a problem with that, regardless of whether you're actually taking custody or not. So, and, you know, the FinCEN has been, you know, used to kind of stretch things one way or the other. This is how they do it, by using these vague guidelines that people thought they understood, but really, you know, it's like, they're like, you know, we're going to take it a step further. So unfortunate, but that is what it is.
The conspiracy to commit part of the charges, right? Because that's actually a totally separate charge than money laundering. The conspiracy to commit money laundering,
it's even more
doing a
vague. It's
lot
even
of-
more open-ended for the
Yeah.
conspiracy, right? Instead of
There's-
just saying that, oh, it's money laundering or money transmitting fraud, it's conspiracy too, which
Yeah.
very much opens it up of what they're allowed to charge you.
Well, you
for
didn't
ultimately.
personally technically money launder, but all these other things, you did the conspiracy to make money laundering happen. It's like, okay, that's a lot harder to defend against,
Yeah.
which is why the law turns everyone into a criminal, obviously.
Yeah. We got a post here from Udi Sexheimer. And it reads, so how many XTM people are hit with the Tradeogre downtime? Getting ridiculous now, almost 2 days down. Yeah, there's been a little bit of talk about Tradeogre. They've been down for, at this point, I think it's been this is July 31st. It's been like 3 or 4 days now. Tradeogre's been down. And if you try to connect to them, you'll go through the Cloudflare verification, and then eventually you'll just get an error saying the host is down. So it's looking like Tradeogre, I guess nobody really knows yet. I haven't seen any definitive information about what's going on. It looks like I've seen some posts potentially showing that they've been moving some Ethereum from some Tradeogre known owned wallets. So exit scam, maybe. Tradeogre's been around for a long time, and while they've always been like, technically they've been shady and sketchy just because they're, you know, kind of exist out there. We don't know what the country they actually reside in. They've been reliable for, you know, however many years, like a pretty long time. And I know a lot of people have used Tradeogre, but they have been down for the past 3 or 4 days, and so people are getting concerned. So hopefully you didn't have anything in there, because if you did, there's a chance you're not getting it back. Like Tradeogre was kind of useful for just doing trades, and I guess how do I put it? Maybe a less annoying way. Okay. You couldn't obviously buy and sell crypto with fiat. It was just for basically swapping spot. But it was kind of good for just doing trades. Hopefully didn't hold any in there because it was very sketchy. And now it looks like you might have just lost whatever you had if you had stuff stuck in there. So hopefully you don't have anything stuck inside Tradeogre wallets. That said, it's not confirmed that they're fully gone or an exit scam, but it looks like there's been no response from anybody involved with Tradeogre thus far. So it's very possible they are gone. And it is unfortunate because Tradeogre is one of those highly loved exchanges in the privacy community in general, just because they're largely unregulated, don't have KYC. But that's kind of
there's really nobody else like that now, right? I mean,
No.
that's other than the instant exchanges. I mean, there's no non-KYC privacy coin centralized exchange.
Moving on. Next up, we've got a post from Arcane Numismatics, and it reads, Nick Fuentes supports Monero. Let's play this video here.
Arcane Numismatics sent $10. The French Bitcoin story is a good example of why Monero is such an important tool. Monero is private by default, and chain analysis would not be able to find any information about the transaction. The IRS has a $625,000 bounty on tracing Monero, and no one has been able to break its privacy yet.
I totally agree.
Arcane Numismatics.
So I think this is in context to, as you can see, a quote tweet here. A it looks like he got a very large Bitcoin donate. This says $500 here. I think it was like actually like 500K. So this individual, Nick Fuentes, he got a very large Bitcoin donation from somebody. Actually, let's see how long this video is. I might be able to play this. Not too long.
Riley and Cal.
This will probably explain the scenario of why he would support Monero and, you know, on top instead of Bitcoin in terms of like understanding the privacy.
California, you're on the air. Question for Nick. Go ahead.
Hello. I would just like to ask Nick a question. So I'm just wanting to know why Nick took a $500,000 Bitcoin donation from a French Jew in 2020 and then immediately changed his viewpoints on Russia and things like that. So I just kind of want to know, Nick, what's going on with that?
Yeah, well, it's $250,000 actually. Now it's worth a lot more. It was 13.5 Bitcoin. If you want to know the truth about it, I've talked about it before. I didn't know the French donor. If you know anything about him, he was a computer programmer or a hacker. He had a degenerative neurological condition. By the way, all of this I found out in the news. I got 2 emails from him. In August of 2019, he sent me, or excuse me, of 2020, he sent me an email and said, hey, what's your Bitcoin address? I want to send you some money for your birthday. I gave it to him. He sent me $1,000. December 8th, 2020, I get an email from him. He says, hey, I sent you some Bitcoin. I said, oh, cool. Check my wallet. A couple days later, it was $250,000. I emailed him back. I said, yo, thank you so much. Let's get on a call. Never heard back. Then I find out through Chainalysis, which is like, it's like a CIA-backed crypto investigative thing. They did research. They found it was some hacker, and there was a, what do you call it, when a person dies. In France, they found out he killed himself in some hotel room. So I didn't know the guy, never talked to him. My position on Russia has always been the same.
Okay, so that's kind of the context there, is that he had been donated a very large amount of Bitcoin, and the only way that people were able to know like who he got this Bitcoin from was because of Chainalysis, because of Bitcoin Transparent. And with an amount that large, you know, people are going to look into that, be like, oh, where's money coming from? And so this kind of just is one of those basic, usual points of like, oh, that's why Monero is good. So, and I guess why this is notable is because so Nick Fuentes is pretty large. He's kind of like getting pretty popular, and so he's kind of another one of those large people online that's, I guess, not outright mentioning Monero, but somebody asked him about it, and he seems to like it. So it's getting more popular. People know about it. I hear a lot of background noise from, I think, Doug. Oh, did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me? Is it clear? Or I'm about to lose battery power over here, so I'm probably gonna lose you guys. So if you can, Tux, obviously just continue on without me.
No worries, no worries. I hear you. So moving on, we've got just a few more posts here, guys. We got a post from Cake Wallet. Monero miners just proved something beautiful about decentralization. When Cubic attempted a 51% attack on XMR, the community didn't panic. They organized. Miners boycotted the pool, hash rate redistributed, and the network stayed strong. TLDR, Chud Jack won. Nothing happens again. As always. Now, I mean, once again, this is not something we should, bury our heads in the sand about. It's a good thing to keep an eye on, but it is funny to see that so far, out of all these bold claims that Cubic and then the Come From Begone guy had, didn't really live up to the hype. It was a lot of hype, and so far it hasn't lived up to it. And people in general are becoming more aware of mining. Now, how many people actually started mining because of this? I don't know. It's hard to say because the hash rate in general hasn't gone up that much. But people are becoming more aware. There's more promotion behind mining, and there probably is a lot more people mining now. So ultimately, this is playing out to be a good thing for the decentralization of Monero, because Monero does need a lot more hash rate to be secure, and especially decentralized hash rate. So use P2Pool. That's the moral of the story, is use the P2Pool. And we've got a post from AI-Leah. Fight Monero Mining Pool centralization easily and with fun bonuses via GUPAX. It bundles P2Pool plus XMRig in a single GUI, or a simple GUI, supports remote nodes for fast setup, plus gamble your hash rate in the XMR versus Beast bonus raffle for XMR wins. Yeah, so if you want a really easy way to start mining Monero on any desk, any computer really, it can be an ARM system or it can be an x86 system, then just download and use GUPAX. And if you use GUPAX with double X, then it includes this XMR versus Beast bonus raffle program, which can allow you to win even more. So very cool. And then last post, we've got a post from Pirate Nation here that says your Spotify account will be deleted unless you complete age verification. So this is in reference to these ongoing sort of push for age verification happening in the UK and then in the EU broadly. But right now it's really been being pushed hard in the UK, where a lot of services are now being required to actually verify your age via facial recognition or your photo ID. So a lot of like even Spotify now, you got to have a picture photo ID. You got to give your ID to Spotify just so you can use it. That's kind of crazy, right? It's just Spotify. It's just music. And this is going to start to be extended to more and more things as time goes on, it seems. And it's kind of very rapidly going to a place where it's like, in order to do any of these main services online, these mainstream services, you have to give that service your ID, right? And it's like, you don't know who's processing it because it's not even them. It's not even Spotify. It's going to be some third party. And it's oftentimes shady or sketchy third parties that's going to be handling your data in a way that's probably not the most secure. And eventually that data might be leaked and your data's out there. And now you're forced to tie your full identity to all these services. So this is going to be happening in social media. Like I think Reddit's already doing this, and including streaming services like Spotify. That's kind of crazy. So for me, that's not even, that point, it's not even worth it. I wouldn't even bother using the service. Nowadays, I don't use Spotify already, but if the whatever service, if I was using some like entertainment service and they required an ID, I would just, at that point, I'd be like, that's not worth it anymore. So I hope people will resist that, but knowing how most people operate, they probably won't. So and I think that's it for the news today, guys. So yeah, let me close that off. And I think we'll go ahead and move into viewers on stage and pull anyone else up who wants to come up.
It's the Viewers on Stage segment. It's that time where we invite you, the viewers, up on stage to comment on anything you've heard so far today, ask the guest a question, or maybe talk about one of the news topics. Come on down.
All right, pulling everyone else up.
So I've got a couple of things. Firstly, with this Samourai Wallet thing, I've got two things on it actually. From what I heard, and this makes a lot of sense to me, that the money transmission part, yes, the peers were doing the money doing the actual trades or whatever, but the fee is what they said was being transmitted to them, and that's how they got them on the money transmission. Was the fee itself. Secondly,
I see.
With the Samourai Wallet thing, I wonder how this affects Ashugaru, because isn't it the exact same thing?
Well, I don't think Ashugaru, I haven't used it. I actually can't say. I'm not aware of the issue with the Samourai case was the centralized whirlpool mixer, not the wallet itself, but the mixer that is used inside the wallet. So I don't really know if Ashugaru is doing the same thing or if they're using a decentralized mixer now, because there was some efforts being made to make Whirlpool decentralized, but it didn't really see the light of day before they were apprehended. So
okay, because if Ashugaru is doing it decentralized, then that wouldn't affect them most likely. But if they are doing the same thing centralized, then they have the same problem Samourai did. And the third thing is Cubic. I know that they said that they're not on mining pool stats anymore because they've turned off their API to go into quote unquote stealth mode. It's not stealth mode, guys. Just look at the unknown hash rate in the stats. If unknown is bigger than 1%, you can track you can track what Cubic is doing, because it's never been above 1% before.
Oh, do you mean
yeah, there's a section for unknown, so it's like unknown, and then it's got like all the different pools or whatever that give their API, and Cubic might have shut themselves off, but they're still contributing to the Monero network, and so they're going to show up in the unknown section.
You know, that's just them, that eventually they're going to try and claim that they got 51% and headline it, even if they didn't get it, even if they don't have it, even if it's just for like they won 5 blocks in a row, maybe just by chance. They're going to be like, we have 51%, right? It's going to happen. And then I almost posted about it this morning, actually. Like, if you're one of those people out there that's like all, you know, Cubic crazy, just, you know, you will never be forgiven. I will never forgive you. You will never be trusted again if you post some bullshit because Cubic said so, but without verifying it for yourself. So please verify before you spread nonsense, because I do expect that it's very possible they're going to lie about this at some point.
Yeah, just use P2 pool and verify anything Cubic says. That's clearly the message to take away from this.
So we've got Art Lamp, Alaskanon, and Cellar Door. Anyone wants to say anything? Feel free.
Come on, Art Lamp. We'd love to hear from you. Come on.
Not much. Just standing by and listening. I never heard of that thing, Qubit. Sincerely, people doesn't give a shit about all these fightings between Bitcoin funding core against other projects, because this seems more like a propaganda attack. You know, it's like many others. And you have the regular people that just want to trade and become a millionaire with $1,000 invested in some shitcoin. So that's the current state of the market right now. And August, low liquidity. And we have maybe ahead of us demand destroying event, closer and closer. We don't know exactly when it will happen and why, and etc. But maybe a reset on the financial system is close. Nobody knows. But a lot of people, unfortunately, are going to learn the hard way this time. And that's all I can say.
If you give your ID to these centralized services by like Spotify for asking for your ID and you get pwned, you were just asking for it. I'm sorry, but there's got to be a line in the sand drawn, and I think this is it. If you're not on Nostr or Mastodon or Lemmy or PeerTube or any of these other services that aren't going to require you to do this, then you're the problem. Fix it.
Hey, Tux, I'm sending a website in the chat. This was just posted by the Monero Research Lab. Looks like about 40 minutes ago. MoneroConsensus.info. And it looks like it's a visualizer for orphaned blocks, so we can see how often they're occurring. I don't know if you can bring that up on screen, maybe follow the link and then show it. But yeah, this is straight from the Monero Research Lab. I'm just looking at this right now. So
interesting. So this was created by Rucknium. I guess this was just showed up a little bit ago because they do those meetings around this time on Saturday, don't they?
Oh, okay.
You say breaking news. When you say breaking news, I'm thinking of that iPhone ringtone, that the news flash thing.
So this web app displays a visualization of recent orphaned blocks and alternative chains of the Monero blockchain. Occasional orphan blocks are normal. They occur naturally when two miners mine valid blocks almost simultaneously. Ooh, that's pretty cool. A high rate of orphan blocks can indicate a problem in network-wide connection latency or even malicious behavior by one or more entities with a large hash power share. If a malicious entity with a high share of network hash power attempted a selfish mining strategy to raise its share of block rewards, the rate of an orphaned blocks could increase. The malicious entity would cause the blocks of other pools to become orphaned. This evidence would appear in the visualization below. A malicious entity with 50% or more of the total network hash power could attempt deep chain reorganizations by mining an alternative chain. Alternative chain are like orphan blocks, but are more than one block in length. Alternative chain should appear in the visualization below. The web app is new and untested.
This is really cool.
This is very cool.
Yeah, so you can see
a couple of
the
these
yellow
ones spreading out here, right?
Yeah, the yellow ones are where they omitted some blocks. And then the pink ones, obviously, are the unknown or the solo miners. Yeah, you know, I also have a question, like, how many solo miners are there? Maybe not that many, but there are people out there that are just mining, hashing into the air, and then every now and then, like once a year, they find a block, you know, even though they never show up on any kind of like mining pool. So the real Monero hash rate is probably slightly higher than what it would seem, just simply because of solo miners out there.
You know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, everybody that I know personally who mines in my area is a solo miner. Some of them also mine on peer-to-pool, but even my next door neighbor is a solo miner. And then when I ask about it and I ask why, they all start singing the Crypto Bear song. And I think that's pretty based.
I've never heard of the Crypto Bear song.
Monero Extremist.
It's a classic. No, there's an actual one that's called Solo Mining Monero. Monero
I did not know
also
that.
talks about it. Yeah. But my kids sing it all the time. Anytime I bring up Monero, they start singing Crypto Bear, but which is like every day. That is a really cool visualization, though. One thing that I hope people are realizing about watching the current events unfold, which I'm still trying to make sure that I'm certain of my understanding of some of the big Monero news lately. I think it's reached a level of complexity where each person has to verify for themselves that they have a legitimate and true understanding of what is going on. And I haven't reached that point yet, as far as like qubits and all of that other stuff. But one thing that I think is more true now than ever before is we have got to work on, I guess you could call it the big three. We need to raise hash power, we need to hold a higher price, and we need to make on and off ramps easier, because all three of those things reduce the attack surface that people are claiming may or may not be possible right now. If you raise the price of a Monero block reward, you're going to have more people mining it, and you're going to de-incentivize mining anything but Monero directly or something that rewards you with actual Monero. If you improve the on and off ramps, you're going to see more price stability, and you're probably going to see a price hike. And if you raise the hash power amongst known good actors, you're also going to reduce the attack surface for these things that people are claiming is possible.
And go shame your friends. So P2 Pool right now has 4.2% of the hash rate in the last 1,000 blocks. Go shame your friends into mining P2 Pool. And if nothing else, if you just can't get them to do it themselves, be willing to set it up for them.
I think there's a certain level of pride of solo mining. And the way I look at it, it does pretty much just as much good as being a part of the P2 Pool blockchain. Mining pool. I like the idea of a lot of people solo mining Monero. there's nothing more distributed than a solo miner, right?
Yeah, you've definitely got a point there. The problem with solo mining and why mining pools exist to begin with is to make profits more, like to make rewards more regular. Because when you're solo mining, you might get a block in a week, or you might get a block in 10 years. You never know. But to
I
get
think
like
there's a lot
more
of
consistent
people
payout.
that there's kind of this idea that people mine based on incentives, and that's very true in a lot of places. But I think it's far less true in Monero than people realize. And I've never ever mined because I was hoping to get Monero. It's cool when I do, but I don't care. You know, like as an alleged, possibly, maybe or not Monero holder, allegedly. Like it to me, there's a value in knowing that I'm contributing to the security of my alleged may or may not exist funds. So and it's like, oh, I have 3 gaming computers that aren't running. I may allegedly use them to mine Monero or not, you know. So I never cared about. I mean, 9 months out of the year, it's just free heat for my house. It's like it's a wash no matter what I do if I'm mining Monero and never see a dime or a pico or what. So I like contributing to P2 Pool when I do it, but my hat is off to anybody who's going to solo mine. And I think that there's a lot of people who are driven by the incentive. I mean, gambling is popular for a reason. You know, a lot of people would get this huge dopamine rush if they solo mined a block. It's not the same when you're doing it on P2 Pool or any other, you know, mining pool. There's something to be said about like, I got it, like my computer got it.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. For me, I can't mine except for like November, December, January, February, and March. If I mine basically any other time of the year, the heat that I get from the computer is just going to be awful. Like it's 85 degrees in here right now, and that's with the air conditioner doing its best to keep it cool. So if I was to mine, it would be intolerable. I mean, absolutely intolerable. And the temperature outside is like 100 degrees. Like no bullshit.
You have no idea. Some of you have seen the room that I do this show from. If all of the computers are running in here at the same time in my Arctic home, it's still just a sauna. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it is not fun mining during the summer.
I did the math in my head. I think in CPUs alone, there's like 128 cores in this room. Plus, like, there's not all of them are in a computer right now, but I think there's 9 graphics cards in this room. Sometimes they are all in a computer.
I kind of wish I had one of those Monero ASICs because that would really help for turning it on during the winter. Because right now, my computer, even at full bore, mining during the winter only puts out like the CPU is like 50 watts or something like that. So it's not a whole heck of a lot of heat.
Just a little sketched out about like what happened to that computer before I got it. You know what I mean? I get a certain level of like comfort out of knowing that like I'm the one who put the computer together and I picked the operating system and all that other stuff. Now, like my main privacy computer is also, you know, Intel management engine disabled, and I know there's supposed to be a way to do that with the AMD chips too, but I don't know how to do it.
Not really.
Yeah, like I usually just buy a laptop that's already had the management engine disabled if I have to do something like that's actually extra private. but that sketches me out, like whatever they may have done to an ASIC, quote unquote, not really an ASIC. What did they do to that computer before I got it? I suppose once you transfer the funds to a different wallet, though, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter that much.
I think there's a lot more user space concerns than like worrying about the PSP and stuff that run, like in the firmware. Like that's a concern, sure, but there's also like equally a lot of user space concerns with just like basic Linux desktop security not being up to par.
Like I just think there's a niche that's not being filled, because you can get, you can mine Monero with your 100-watt CPU or whatever, but you're only going to get like 100 watts out of it. Or you can go buy like a Bitcoin ASIC that takes 3,000 watts, and that's far too high. But there's really no good options between, say, like 300 and like 800 watts that would be a good space heater without cooking you to death, but with a manageable electricity pull. Like there's really no good like.
What about that Bitmain Antminer? The RISC-V one that was designed for random X mining.
I don't know how much that pulls at top.
Let's see.
It's been a while now, but I'll tell you this: using a 5950X for my kid's space heater, and this is a little while ago, but it was perfect, man. It was like exactly how much heat I wanted to add to kind of like right underneath their bed. And it's like a good amount of power, especially since there would be two in the room, so one underneath each bed. Like it was the perfect amount of heat. I'd love to get to the point where I just like set them up underneath the floor of the entire house, like every 10 feet or so. That would be so cool. Heated floors.
If you like mining, living in a cold climate's kind of a perfect luxury.
Or freedom. If you like freedom too, it's great.
I do have a bunch of high-end AMD CPUs, but I'm not mining with them all on full blast because it's pretty hot where I live right now. In the wintertime, for a few months, then I can run things a lot more.
I was talking to some of the mechanics where I work, and we were getting into like battery blankets and block heaters and stuff, and then naturally my mind started running to, how could I make a Monero miner that heats the oil pan? Like and it just shows like, man, I'm addicted to this. Like something that's like bouncing around on the underside of a car, trying to keep it like thermal pasted to an oil pan, like.
There you go.
Oh, somebody could definitely figure it out. Like you could totally figure it out. But how cool would that be? Just like it's sitting out in the Arctic winter, directly connected to like an oil pan, and making a transmission heater and a battery blanket while you're at it. Like just get 3 badass CPUs constantly healing like a permanently cold fluid.
Or are you going to have to challenge Arctic Mine for the moniker soon?
Okay, I have a Ryzen 7 5700G is what I'm running for my CPU.
Like you're literally, Alaska, you're literally in the Arctic mining the shit out of Monero, solo mining. Like, I don't know. Arctic Mine, you're challenging Arctic Mine for the moniker, bro, I think.
Yeah, I do both P to pull and solo. And it's like I've never cared about block rewards. I've always just cared about heat and hash power. But and I mean, I know Chloe's the same way. I know that some of the other people that are near me are the same way. Like, nobody actually thinks about collecting Monero from mining block rewards. Like, just nobody ever thinks about it ever.
Anyone here remember the SETI at home processing program back in the days? Today it doesn't exist anymore.
Which one?
I do remember SETI at home, and I actually contributed to it. As for your solo mining thing, Alaska, it would help if you guys did do P2 pool, because I know you said that in Alaska there's not an easy way of getting Monero, and that would give you more frequent Monero.
Yeah, Monero is kind of the same thing, because if you want to support a network with a real private and secure digital currency, the only choice we have now is Monero, upon running 14 years. 12 years, I think. Something, I don't know when it started exactly, but if I knew, I was around there and I could buy a shit ton of Monero, but I didn't. But I knew about SETI at home. And SETI at home, there was some people that doing that kind of stuff, you know.
One of the other things people don't think about when it comes to being in the Arctic, just as much as the fact that you can always use the heat, like even in the winter, you can totally always use the heat. I mean, even in the summer, I mean. But the other thing is we have a lot of solar activity out here, and we have a lot of like just overproduction of solar energy in the summer. And I remember a while back there was somebody talking about whenever your batteries were a certain level of full, it would turn on more threads for Monero mining. Like, somebody had figured it out, because there was already something for Bitcoin like that. I think they even got interviewed on Monero Talk, and I really should have kept up with it. But the overcapacity of a solar grid is another great place to just dump power with Monero mining. And so it's not like in the winter there'd be this huge demand for producing heat with Monero mining, and then in the summer it kind of fades away. In the summer it actually becomes the opposite end of it, which is there's an overcapacity of power. A lot of these houses are designed around consuming massive amounts of energy in the winter, and then there are people who even get a lot of their energy from solar, like except for the 2 or 3 months where there's just literally nothing. But then that same solar array is producing way too much solar power in peak summer, and you could just dump it into Monero mining there as well. And just like in the Arctic Circle, you could probably get just crazy amounts of hash power, and they wouldn't even care if they were collecting any wealth from it. Just somewhere to put your power. I'd love to go deeper, but I think I just get involved in way too many different things at once. I've become a much more completionist individual than I used to be, but like and what's funny about it is, like, in our yard we even have like pallets and pallets of solar panels that got returned for some reason that are still good and still produce like a lot of power. And at some point I was going to make a huge covered parking area, and I don't know what I was going to do with that power, but of course, where does my brain go immediately is the mining Monero. So it would make a lot of sense. You just put up like a whole bunch of covered parking areas in Alaska, and then you use all of the solar power to just mine like crazy. Especially now that you can get some of those older, like high core count AMD CPUs that are still pretty efficient. And you could just start building motherboard after motherboard of all it does is sit there and mine Monero. Like, who cares if it's exposed to the elements? In fact, just leave it there to rot,
about the idea of getting a couple of those and using some of those smart plugs and a smart sensor connected to Home Assistant. So if the temperature falls below a certain level, it would ramp up one miner, and then if it fell even more, it would ramp up another one, and if it fell even more, it would ramp up another one until the temperature started to rise again. And once it rose to a certain point, it would shut down the plugins one by one until the temperature started to fall again, or such and so forth. Using Home Assistant.
Somebody legit supposedly built. I didn't actually use it or see it or try it, but I think I heard about it on this show. Somebody actually built, like if your solar capacity was reaching such a level and your battery was reaching such a charge, it would turn up the thread count on your mining operation, and eventually it would just max it out. But I never followed up on like where you could get it and installed it and tried it out for myself. And then it was only like 3 or 4 months later, the trucking company that I work for, we ended up with just like a shitload of solar panels that were all still good. And then I was like, oh, I should do that sometime. And now they've been sitting there forever. But a few at a time, they'll come out and they'll get hooked up somewhere, and they're all still good. They all still work. It's like, I might as well do something. But then you got to, like, it's the stuff other than the solar panel that you have to buy and set up. And I don't want to just buy it and let it sit there. Like, if I was going to do it, I would want to do it to completion. And it's just knowing that I'd have to invest that kind of time to try it out. And I also don't know if anybody kept up with the project. So, but if somebody wanted to like grab a hold of that, I'll even do the work of putting the panels together and all of that. Like a lot of this stuff I do know how to do. So I would love to see it happen. It'd be really fun to try. Goth, are we going to hear from you?
Yeah, I need to turn on my mic. It was muted, I know that. I was busy making noise, so it would not be fine if I just joined.
We love new faces, man. That's why we do this. Go for it. Floor is yours.
I was wondering, what if the... I forget the name of the guys that try to rig Monero now. But what if Monero get a hit with something like that? What are the alternatives? Of course, gold and silver are fine, but it's outside the internet, so I cannot buy stuff far away. Not that I do that much, but
there's no one thing about what's going on that the Monero community wasn't aware of as far as like its potential attack vectors. Like 51% attacks, and I mean, I would point out it's not really even 51% attack. You can do a pretty good chunk of damage even if it's not 51% if you just get really close. Or at least cause disruptions and issues. If you were to maintain greater than 51%, now you can do some real damage. But even then, there are ways to kind of deal with it. It really cripples the system until you deal with it. But the idea is you just have to get further along the lines of hash power and adoption and, people using it on a daily basis where it becomes less of a concern. And even though Monero is growing rapidly and people know about it and people are using it more, it's still very small even within the crypto sphere. But it would only take so much more adoption in mining before the attack surface becomes far more difficult. And then there's the other problem of between the main internet I guess you could call it pipelines, you know, where your bandwidth really comes from, like your tier one networks, and then your who actually manufactures processors. Those are the next big hurdle, but that's the truth with basically every computing system right now. And there does not appear to be a solution right now for what are we going to do about the fact that processors are basically manufactured by the same people.
Yeah, I see some other problems outside of the manufacturer of Monero. In the country I live in, you need a bank account to get paid by your employer. If you don't have one, they are not allowed to take your service. They need to pay you at least for the minimum amount by bank. A mobile phone now, you need to give your ID or your driver license. So it's become increasingly harder and harder to get something. And in some ways I can work around, but everywhere are cameras that follow your license plate, your mobile phone if you have one. So I notice in the country I'm in, it's sometimes hard to get people paid differently than by card or cash, because it's so hard to get in and out of it on the rest, because you're not allowed to pay your employees with it. You can't buy gas with it or whatever. So there are very few companies or service in my country where they take it. It's increasingly more and more a little bit, but it's just so slow. And in my surrounding, I every time make the fun. If I go out, if I go to a restaurant, if someone pays for me and want to pay back, I always ask, do you want silver or gold or Monero? And they always, no, not both of them. I don't want it. And I'm always like, why not?
There is opportunity in that. I know I'm like a permanent optimist sometimes, but you can point to that a lot of the time and just explain to people, you know, having at least some of this, having at least some Monero, if these chains get tighter and tighter, this is going to be your life raft. If they were to, for example, turn off your bank account. In a case like yours, at that point, you would almost want to like keep a pamphlet with you or something, like some kind of media that you can show the person, but just use real life examples. So since I work in the logistics industry, I often bring up like the Canadian trucker protest, because it's something that everybody that I meet on a daily basis is aware of. And I explain to them, you know, if you were out in the middle of nowhere and you needed fuel right now, this would pretty much be the only way that you could do it. Or, you know, it like people used to drive around with a lot of cash. And in fact, I even remember when it started to happen, where even if you went to go get fuel and you had cash, they wouldn't take it because of the till. So they couldn't keep track of the cash anymore because of the till. But those same people could have a visual record of transactions using Monero, and then people might be like, oh, well, what if the internet is down? What if their phone is down? I mean, there's solutions for that too that are more common where I live, but usually they're not. Usually it's like kind of one or the other, but the phones will still work. Or but you can use it as an example of, look, the chains are tightening, the leash is tightening, and this is your way out. And this is going to become more important for you to have at least some of this before we get too far down this road.
Yeah, I always annoy them with another way. I ask, can I pay you with silver? Take out the silver off my pocket. Mostly they reject it because some boss or I don't know what to do with that. Then I take out cash, and some places they do not allow cash. And then, yeah, but you can pay with card. Yeah, that's fine, but I don't have my card on me. Yeah, but you can pay with mobile phone. yeah, but I don't have internet. And then they look like you are a weirdo. And I say, am I also having a dumb phone? I don't. I have Graphene OS. But and then they sometimes fans of me say, "Oh, I sent you of people I know. I sent you via WhatsApp the amount you need to pay." And then I see him a couple of days later, and yeah, what's your number? And I don't have a phone number. Yeah, but what is your WhatsApp? I don't have WhatsApp because I need a phone number. And they're always like, how do you get around? And it's not that hard for most people, but if I cannot pay cash or I cannot pay with Monero or Silver, I let them wait. The same with when I stop using WhatsApp. When I get my new phone, I install it with Graphene OS and put the stuff on I need. And then just let the older phone at home and only check it once a week or so. So it gets increasingly slower by paying them with the so-called convenience way. Just like with WhatsApp, I just start reacting slower and slower and slower till eventually people just don't ask you for paying with the bank or that kind of way. And it's quite helpful for me. It's also a lot of mental rest for me because you don't get annoyed with email on your phone and all the apps that come on a normal phone. It's the mental head rest. It's amazing. It's worth much more than anything else in the world. And I do not understand why a lot of people do not notice that. They do not learn. They get overwhelmed by anything. I took my last holiday and I went completely offline. No podcast, no news, no email. Only the call to my parents, I'm safe. Or via Signal. So they know I'm safe because they like to know that. But it was so relaxing to have absolutely no one around, no intervening of anything. And indeed, if the bank last year, the banks had a fallout in the transaction system, and you saw by the places where you can take cash, long lines, because that were the only places that still worked. But people don't learn; they just get cash at that moment, and after that they stop using cash, and they go back to the bank card or the credit card. And it's also with years ago, I just deleted Facebook, and I suddenly noticed that friends stopped inviting me to parties and so. And then later they noticed, wait, you don't have Facebook. And now most of them don't have Facebook anymore, which is funny because then I was the weird one, and now a lot of people don't have it anymore. And it took a long time to get people over. It's sometimes quite annoying.
I was just looking at the statistics of this actually about who uses credit cards and debit cards and all of that. It was this whole Forbes article about like who's using credit cards. And then apparently like people who have a household income greater than 100,000 US. If your family income is 100,000 or more US, it was 98% of all transactions are done with card usage. And then 50,000 and 99 was 94%. But once you get to less than 25,000, it's 57%. So there's kind of like this divide forming as far as who's using cards and who isn't. But I would also point out that's kind of the linchpin of adoption too, because that's a smaller user base with a higher concentration. And those same people are looking for the exit on how to escape the system. because people of means are more and more skeptical of the stability of this system than they used to be. And so there's probably an attack vector there for the privacy enthusiast as far as adoption and things that are alternative payment methods. Chargebacks are becoming more common. You know, people not paying their account balances are becoming more common. A lot of businesses that I associate with are having some serious cash flow crunches because their customers aren't paying on time because they're getting desperate. So you're going to start seeing people looking for a mechanism that's like pay right now, final payment, no chargebacks. Like the money I am owed is mine kind of thing. There's probably going to be an excellent opportunity to make Monero a more popular thing on a business-to-business level, and there's going to be an even more excellent opportunity to get people with wealth to diversify at least part of their portfolio into Monero, knowing that it will provide them with a certain level of I can escape my tyranny protection. It's like an insurance for their wealth to be able to escape their home or whatever.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I use cash for all my transactions face to face, because you see what you have in your pocket without spending more than you have. And I hate it when the bank get an automatic transaction and if it becomes below zero, then they charge a quite high fee. And I told them, yeah, I do not want that. And they say, yeah, but it's how the system works. And that's why I hate that system. Try to get out of it everywhere I can. And but it's quite hard if the government starts making rules that when you buy a new phone, you need to check with your government ID. You need to have a bank account where the biggest part of your income is paid in at least. And I know I can get out of the system in some ways by changing to Monero or other cryptocurrencies or gold and silver. But it's quite hard if most people outside of you don't take it as a payment. And I remember years ago there was a guy on the American streets with a silver bar and a candy bar, and he asked people what they want, and almost everyone took the candy bar. And I was like, what? Why not the silver? You can get so much more candy bars with it than that one candy bar is gonna fulfill you in the end.
So Goth, I don't know how valuable this is going to be for you with the culture that you're in or whatever, but it sounds like you're pretty passionate. So I think I'll just throw a couple of things out there, and this is going to sound kind of cold, but it's just, and I'll try to like soften it up, but the truth is the truth.
I have a tough skin. I can handle a lot.
Yeah,
it's not
I want to say just one thing before
Go ahead.
Because I want to leave. I heard the other day, if you put yourself up in front of a mirror and say Michael Saylor 3 times, all you, your family and your friends become billionaires in the same second. You say 3 times Michael Saylor in front of a mirror, and you become billionaire. So that's a good point. And finally, the monopoly of violence is not applying only for gunpoint violence. It's also for monetary violence. And if you have a business, you have 2 choices to make your business succeed: by making it by force, which is what the state does, and make it by market choice, free market activity. And that's the harder one. That's the genuine one. So what we have here is people is becoming very tired of these control situations, of these Ponzi scam situations, without this financial system, beginning from credit and debit cards, ending in stock market and monetary funds and banking mafia. So people are becoming very afraid of this thing, especially those who live out of that scam, because they really know how it works. Sometimes you think people that maybe is stupid, but other people are very aware of how all this scam works. And the monopoly over money that state want to run is facing a limit here. Is funny because this is in direct connection, at least in a psychological level, with the very first thing I say in this intervention. If you put yourself in front of a mirror and say, look into yourself 3 times Michael Saylor, you become billionaire. So that's the system itself. The psychology of the system is, if you become part of us, this thing that looks ridiculous, because when I want to pay something, or when somebody wants to pay me using credit, debit card, transfer, there is always, not always, but 80% we have a problem, a limit problem, a transfer problem, a commission problem, a delay problem, always a problem. And then I have a card a month later from the IRS. So what the fuck? And to finally, the gold and silver alternative, the analog money, if you want. And all I can say, silver is widely used all around the world. Not now, but in history, it's very recognizable as a metal, as a money. And in a situation where cash holds nothing of value, or is very insecure to hold cash, silver is very good to go, or even a war situation. You never know. But the limit that we are facing with this situation, with this banking system, is that people are becoming very afraid and tired of this situation, because you always have a problem with this bank. If you want to move your own hard-working money, if you move $500 from account B to account C, you have a notification from your bank. You have a notification for Hacienda, for, I don't know, your tax agency of your country. You have always a problem. And even on top of that, technical problems. The limit, the commission, the delay doesn't go through. It's a piece of shit. So the problem with this system is that people want to believe there is an opportunity of them, but I don't see it going through. People are becoming tired of this thing. So that's my take. Thank you.
Actually, that kind of fits right into what I was going to say to Goth, which is the cold, hard truth of just humans in general is the vast majority of the population does not have it's a skill called deferred gratification. And it causes all kinds of distortions in the way that they see the world. Without adequate time horizons for what can be done with stored value, with stored wealth, you're going to get all kinds of weird stuff, like people, valuing a candy bar over a bar of silver, because the funny thing is once you get to the point where you're like, that silver could buy, X number of candy bars, you're also probably not the kind of person who wants to eat the candy bar anyway, because that same deferred gratification will tell you that you shouldn't be eating that crap. So when people seek the dopamine rush, when people see, even if it was equal value, like even if it was a box of candy bars or an ounce of silver, people with deferred gratification may just over the novelty alone of having the silver would pick the silver. But they're a small segment of the population until the productive members of society are expecting to be paid in the thing that they can divert their gratification to, which then brings you into Gresham's law, which I'll leave that alone because I'm pretty sure everybody knows what that is. And if you don't, look it up. But the second thing about it is so I use gold backs a lot, like in my payment strategies and, you know, tipping people and whatever. And for one, I almost never have a problem getting people to accept gold backs. But if I want a restaurant or something to take Monero directly, usually what I'll do is I'll just do it indirectly. They get their fiat, I spend in Monero. It's, you know, it's all the same to me. But the thing is if I just pull a Karen and I'm like, hey, let me talk to your manager about how I want to pay here. And I just say, hey, this is Monero. It has this value. Here's some proof that it has this value. I would like to pay you in this instead of that. I would like you to not pay the transaction fee. I would like you to diversify your portfolio. I would like you to choose whether or not you want to pay the taxes on this income. That is your choice, not mine. Usually that's the end of the conversation, because the higher up the chain you go, the more likely they are to value something over fiat. The person who's there to collect fee, bring food, all of that stuff, they're usually really low on the, let's call it deferred gratification totem pole. There's a reason why certain people at certain classes of job ended up there. And almost invariably, it has to do with deferred gratification. It doesn't take people very long who can defer their gratification to end up doing things that they want to do, to end up doing things that they're passionate about, to end up being in the entrepreneur owner class. So a lot of the time it just takes the step of getting above that person, talking to the person who's in charge, and then it becoming a policy. For example, that's how I got to the point where I could buy meat for Monero. I didn't talk to the person who's booking the sale of the meat. I talked to the person who was producing the meat, and they said I would accept Monero for my meat. And then I would say, let your person know, and we're good. Now, they didn't even go as far as where I was like, look, just give her a view key so I can pay and she can see that I paid. Or the producer even just went right past that and said, I'll let them know that you've paid and to give you the meat or whatever. But there's all kinds of little examples of when you just go directly to the producers or when you go to the entrepreneur owner class, you're going to find way more success on getting the adoption. And then they will tell their people that this is now an acceptable method of payment. Because those aren't the decision makers. The person who's bringing your food to you at a restaurant table is not allowed to make decisions. And they shouldn't be allowed to make decisions, because that's a great way for your business to go bankrupt. I would love a world where employees could have more of a say in the business that they're working at. The problem is
now I understand why I always having trouble with my boss. I do stuff and then expect they accept what I did.
A lot of people who are this early to Monero, though, are the kinds of people that can be trusted to be empowered with those kinds of decisions. Our community is made up of people. There's kind of this concept of when you get to a certain point in your own ability to rationalize, you're going to make the mistake of thinking that people are also making rational decisions. You can't do that. You have to assume that people are being mostly operated by their hormones, by their, like, how much dopamine can I get out of doing such and such thing? But even people who are highly intelligent, they're going to have certain things that they do entirely to feel good. But those people can usually still rationalize, like, oh yeah, I'll take the Monero, or oh yeah, I'll take. But that's how you end up with intelligent people being addicted to stuff, is because they're still making hormonal based decisions. Or, I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of good financial sense to have a whole bunch of kids, right? But you do it because there's like an ethical, and there's a, like there's a hormonal response to wanting to do it, or there's a higher purpose. But the decisions at the level of who brought you your coffee, they're not deciding how they're going to be paid. They don't set the prices at the establishment. They do, like, that's not the person that you're looking for. So I guess what I'm saying is they're sheep and they don't matter, and you need to go to the guy who matters.
That's why I like XMR Bazaar so much, because the people on there are willing to accept Monero. And then I'll message, like, every fiat listing I see, I'll message them and be like, hey, if possible, please price your items directly in Monero. And a lot of them do. A lot of them are like, oh shit, yeah, I should totally do that. And they'll price their items in Monero directly. And personally, the way I see it is, I don't want to pay somebody who doesn't price their items in Monero directly. Like, if I saw an item I wanted on XMR Bazaar and the person wouldn't price it directly in Monero, I'd put up my own ad directly in Monero asking somebody to purchase that item for me.
So the last thing that I'm going to tell you, Goth, I need you to make absolutely sure that you are super cautious about when you deploy this strategy. But shame is an incredibly powerful weapon in certain circumstances. If you have the right individual that you're discussing something like this with, so as an example conversation, if I'm trying to pay for something and they're telling me, we take fiat, and you say, for example, if you were to, for example, look, for religious reasons, I don't engage in that system, but I have this payment strategy that you can use that works within your system. But I don't use debt-bearing instruments for making transactions. Do you just hate Jesus? Do you hate Muhammad? Do you, like, you give them examples of places in whatever scripture they might abide by. I'm not allowed to use a debt-bearing asset. So in Islam and Christianity, that's super easy to do. In the Jewish world, a lot of them will say, well, you're not a Jew, so I don't have to respect that or whatever, but it can still be done. And how are they going to know you're not a Jew, right? So, but you can find some kind of leverage against the person's sense of justice to drive them into accepting your payment method. And then when they go to try to figure out how to use that payment method, they'll red pill themselves. Or another thing that you can do is you can basically say, it doesn't even necessarily have to be true, but you could make it sound like it's true. So, and I'm not saying lie either, but you can bring up an example of a lot of us are being debanked because our stance on, I don't know, the genocide in Gaza or whatever. You can usually tell which side somebody's going to fall on just by looking at them, right? So if I have something bad to say about the genocide in Gaza and I get debanked, I can't patron this establishment anymore. Or you can, or like, I'm anti-war, so I don't use fiat. Are you telling me that I can't live in my hippie garden and use Faircoin and Monero just because? You see what I'm saying? Like, you can guilt trip them into wanting to take your currency. And then when they take it and they have to use it, they will red pill themselves. But you do have to be very careful when you use a strategy like that, but the batting average is nearly 100% if you're good at it.
Yeah, I'm sometimes a quiet, straightforward, hard guy, and some of my friends start noticing every time they say, "Oh, things got so expensive," and when I'm around, they start, "Wait, the money is worth nothing." Because every time someone says that, I say, "No, your money has become worthless. They print so much." And I did it one time with a bank. I transfer money to an other country, and they start calling me for why I transferred that. And I was like, "You're from the bank." Yeah, fuck off. Transfer my money and don't annoy me. And I hang up. And they did not. They start calling again and again and again.
When I was
And
trying
they
to
and they close at 5, and I get in at 5 minutes before closing time. And I was like, "You're going to transfer my money now, or I wait here, and I keep you here as the boss of the of that banking location till my money is transferred." 30 seconds, it was done, because they don't want to wait there for the cops and that kind of thing to show up to set me out. And I make an whole mess of it, film it, put it on the internet if they make a mess out of it. And it's quite funny. Some people just stop talking about certain things in my area because they know they get a reaction out of it if they start doing it.
When I was
because I'm just so hard and straightforward.
When I was trying to spend Monero in Washington or Oregon, eventually I just kept saying the same thing over and over again when people wouldn't take it because it always worked. "You don't take Monero here? Oh, do you just hate black people?" And it worked every time. Like, they didn't even ask what the logic was behind it. I would just say, "If you don't take Monero, you must hate black people." And they would just immediately take the Monero. It always worked. And at the time, people were terrified of the idea of looking like they hated black people. And then if I ever got any pushback, I would always, this was when people were saying like black people were having trouble getting bank accounts and IDs. And so if they gave me any pushback at all, I would say, "This is how black people get around not being able to have a bank account or IDs. And you need to stop talking about black people like they're stupid." And then they would just take the Monero every time. It was amazingly effective. So that like the shame thing can work incredibly well. And then, yeah, the whole disruption technique too, that worked in Alaska when they were trying to do the mask mandate. And everybody would just push back and throw a complete fucking tantrum about it. And you would never have to wear a mask anywhere in Alaska, I guess, except in Juneau, but fuck that place. But the thing is nobody was wearing a mask anywhere in Alaska because anytime somebody tried to push it on them, they would just throw a tantrum and freak out and be like, "I'm never coming here again," and throw the mask on the floor, and cops would get involved. And like everybody was just afraid to poke the hornet's nest. So just remember those words. "Do you hate black people?" And then they'll take your Monero. I think the hot one right now would be use the Gaza thing. Be like, "This is the only way that we can get money to refugees from Gaza right now. How are they supposed to come here and get food if you won't accept Monero?"
All right, guys, I'm seriously considering heading off for the day.
Same. I love the congregation, though. You guys are the best.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it might be a good time to end it off here.
Great show, everybody. Great show.
God bless you all.
Thank you, everyone, for coming on, as always.
I'm super proud of this hat.
That is a pretty awesome fucking hat.
The CIA guy glows in the dark, people. He glows in the dark.
And you can see him if you're driving, and you can run him over.
Yes.
In Minecraft.
Yes. 9999 is the day where we all learn that they glow in the dark. God bless you all. See you later.
All right, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Monerotopia episode. We stream live shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube and Odyssey.
Oh, wait, before I close it off, I missed an XMRChat. Cyrus tipped $5. I don't know what this Q-Bert thing is, but I'm not intimidated by it. Thank you for the update. Thank you very much for the XMRChat, Cyrus. Very good, appreciated. And now I'll go ahead and end it off here.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Monerotopia episode. We stream live shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube and Odyssey, or listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or join us in the Monerotopia Telegram group.